The October 7th, 2021 meeting of the Hendersonville City Council. We begin our meetings with a silent invocation for people to pray or meditate as they choose, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll stand, please. You'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We have public comment time up to about 5 minutes. We have 4 people signed up here. There may be some on Zoom, and I have a few brief comments that came in electronically ahead of time. So if you could limit your comments to between 2 and 3 minutes, it would be much appreciated. So first is Rafael Morales. And if you'd come forward, state your name and your address for the clerk's record, please.
My name is Rafael Morales, and I live at 538 North Main. Y soy candidato al Consejo de la Ciudad de Hendersonville. Estoy aquí hoy para enfocarme en la hispanidad. Después de revisar las redes sociales de la ciudad, no hemos encontrado ningún reconocimiento al importante momento cultural. Esta es una poderosa oportunidad para mostrar nuestra vibrante cultura. Esta oportunidad perdida es un ejemplo de las conversaciones que no tenemos conocimiento. Espero traer diversidad de representación y perspectiva en esta elección. No debemos permitir que estas oportunidades pasen. Quedan 5 días de este importante mes y estoy emocionado de celebrarlo con la ciudad. Muchas gracias por tu tiempo.
¿Vas a traducir para el grupo que no pueden hablar español? Porque yo entiendo qué dice. Y el grupo no habla en español, pero no tienes una traducción. Por favor, puedes traducir para el grupo.
Okay. I'm a candidate for the city of Hendersonville. I'm here today because we have an important month for the Hispanic community, and it is Hispanic Heritage Month. And after reviewing the social media for the city and as well as the website, I have seen nothing in the way the city acknowledging or celebrating this important cultural month. We do have an event at the Ola Carolina Cultural Center tomorrow, and I think that it's a powerful opportunity to showcase a vibrant culture. And it's an example, I think, again, of conversations that we are not having as a city. I look forward to bringing a diversity of representation and perspective into this election. And I think that we can't let opportunities like this pass. So we have 5 days left, and it's an important month. And I'm looking forward to celebrating this with our city.
Gracias.
Thank you. Next, Daryl C. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daryl C. 1507 Greenway Highway, Hendersonville, North Carolina. Jerry Smith told me that I should show up today. I'm recommending an artist facility market. He mentioned that the city had a hotel rotation. I thought through that was think about turning to a park. I had proposed he said that nobody recommended it as an option to the city. I thought it could be something, sorry. I thought it could be something similar to the Charleston market. I'm not sure exactly what needs to be done in order to make that happen, but I have had a lot of acknowledgement online about it, doing the post and speaking to Jared. Sorry, guys. I proposed different locations to him, but he said due to structural financing, I guess, I'm not sure exactly the word to use, for the funding of the spots. But I wanted to propose the artist thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, may I step in 1 second?
Okay,
So this gentleman came to see one of my campaign events, and I do think you need to come with a drawing of what you have in mind.
I do have a drawing. I just got off work and came right here.
I think you should email that to the clerk so she can present it to the members of council. And I told him he should present this idea and share it with you, and that's what I said to him.
okay, thank you. Dean Sloan.
Things live at 318 Hillview Boulevard. On Hillview Boulevard for the last 5 years, there's been an excessive amount of reckless driving and speeding up and down the road. Since we lived back behind the old Kelsey's restaurant, and since Kelsey's is closed down, there's a group of people who seem to think that it's a playground, and they're back there doing burnouts and donuts all the time, acting foolish. I have 4 grandchildren. My next door neighbor's got 4 small children that are out in their yard playing. We called the police multiple times, several times. They come out, talk to them, stops for a few months, starts back over. Never ending. 5 years, we've yet to have this resolved, which would lead me to believe that that the owners of Auto Bell or the managers either have zero respect for the residents there or the property owners who own Kelsey's, because it's not their property and they're allowing their employees to go over. I mean, 90% of the issues going over there can all be attributed to the Auto Bell employees. They drive over there, they play, they do all their stuff, they go. Occasionally, if we catch it in time, we get videos. I called them out this weekend, I showed them videos of them out there, they went to talk to them. Been quiet this week, but a few months it'll start again. As soon as snow hits that parking lot, they won't be able to stand it. It'll start all over. It's a never-ending cycle, and something needs to be done to resolve it. It's just turned into they think it's their personal playground out there. And it's reckless, it's dangerous. We have children out there, and I don't know where else to go beyond the police department, not being able to get anything accomplished at this point. If this is my next step or where to go with. It's turned into just a big nuisance over there. Thank you.
Is it the
Okay.
parking lot behind
Yes,
Kelsey's?
it's the back parking lot.
So it was where the staff parked and all of that?
Yes. Yes, it's the rear. They don't do it in the front because Spartanburg Highway is right there and nobody can see them.
Who uses that? Because Kelsey's isn't even open. Is that parking lot? Sorry.
It's empty.
Parking lot. So the parking lot,
And the parking lot is also posted. I mean,
but it's not blocked off.
no, it is not blocked off.
Could it be blocked?
But we also have a lot of complaints with the police department on the homeless people because they come out there and they pass out in the parking lot, they urinate in the parking lot and hang out there. And the person that owns it has come out and he's been running them off and he's put no trespassing signs up. But the other people with all the cars and stuff, they disregard the no trespassing signs. And so I don't know what can be done about it, but 90% of the issues, though, stem from this one certain group of people.
Okay. All right.
We'll try to follow up on that for you. Thank you. Lynn Williams.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again. Thank you for your time. Lynn Williams, 309 Chadwick Avenue. I called in last month to express my support for the Hendersonville Fire Department and excitement around building Fire Station number 1. It's great to see the initial concept laid out there. I think it's a perfect time to still consider intervening with the creative design that includes the historic Boyd Park Laura Corn Putt-Putt Golf Course. And I plead on behalf of over 1,600 people who have signed a petition for this same reason. Like I said, I do support the fire department, as do many of the people in the petition. I've seen all of their requests, and I hope that we can meet those. This isn't about that. I want to also thank our first responders because they're incredible, and without them, you know, our community would be in grave danger. So thank you so much. Since the last public comment, actually, Council Member Smith did reach out to me, and he wanted to hear a little bit more about why the park was so important to me specifically, and I did explain reasons for why personally it's of personal significance, as it is to these 1,600 other people, plus many more, as have commented back on Facebook to me around this subject. But what I really wanted to explain was that I am not a professional, but you do have a Historic Preservation Commission who has really intelligent people on that who can educate you on the purpose of why you'd want to protect this 81-year-old historic public space across from Hendersonville High School. It's my understanding the fire station, you know, came in about 20 years ago, but the park has been there for much, much longer. So I'm asking if we can come up with a creative solution. One of the workers at the putt-putt suggested, why don't we just build stilts over it? And I think it was kind of a joke, but why not? Why not? You know, that could prevent flooding. We haven't built anything yet. We haven't signed any contracts or anything yet for this. We only have initial rendering. What I'm asking is to please allow us to see a rendering that does creatively include the park. A solution to simply move the park from one public park to another and demolish and erase an 81-year-old park is unethical. And I really ask for you to please reconsider. It's not too late. And one thing about the splash pad is if we keep the putt-putt where it's at, instead of using those funds to relocate it, it already has a ramp at the putt-putt where it's at. We just kind of spruce it up, move it around, make it work, that you could potentially put your splash pad at Edwards Park. So this is a creative solution as well. And that's what I'm here to speak with you about today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone online seeking recognition to speak? Okay. Okay, so he is present. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and let Ron Taylor speak. If you'd give your name and address for the clerk's record, please.
Hello, I am Ron Taylor. I live in Hendersonville at 22B Breeswood Street. I've spoken to you folks since 2015 about this matter, and I'd like to bring it up again and pursue it as best I can. I'm going to read what I've got because I know I have a limited time. Greetings, everyone. My presence here today is to raise the community consciousness about a significant health issue, which I believe is as important as anything else on your established agenda this evening. This affects the health of not just city residents, but the entire community within the county utilizing the municipal water supply. I am speaking about the policy of adding fluoride to the water system. And that fluoride is added, incidentally, as a hazardous waste called hydrofluorosilicic acid. The Hendersonville water system is fluoridated at the Mills River Water Treatment Facility by the addition of hydrofluorosilicic acid, an industrial-grade source of fluoride, which is also a hazardous waste, incidentally, to the level of the drinking water to attain about 0.7 parts per million, that's ppm, of fluoride in the municipal water system. Now, it is my understanding that the City Council last voted on this subject maybe 12 years ago, and the mayor at that time cast the deciding vote for the addition of fluoridation to the water supply in a 2-2 split vote among City Council members. I believe that the current City Council members should educate themselves regarding the science and politics around this issue and exercise their power and follow the will of the community to discontinue adding this toxic chemical to our water supply. The science is now irrefutably clear that fluoride is a toxic substance. It is actually a neurotoxin, and that the addition of any fluoride-containing substances to our water supply is damaging to the entire population, even more so to children and minorities. The science on this subject is extremely well explained in a 1-hour documentary movie entitled Fluoride Gate, which incidentally has been out since 2015 when I first spoke to you about this issue. It is available for everyone to watch at a particular website. Unfortunately, when I printed this out, the blue didn't come out, so it's not going to show on there. But a letter written by Dr. Hardy Limeback, former president of the Canadian Association for Dental Research, eloquently summarizes the subject and provides many references in this movie. I've communicated with every council member about this matter and requested that they educate themselves by watching the Fluoride Gate movie. There is an abundance of current unbiased information available on the internet also, especially that provided by the Fluoride Action Network at their website, and their website is fluoridealert.org. There is absolutely no valid reason for the city or why the city should be paying $70,000 or so per year to purchase a hazardous waste from the industries that produce this hazardous waste, which incidentally are the paper-making industry and also the fertilizer industry, in order to dispose of it in our water system. For those who are unwilling to recognize this truth, they may self-fluoridate and self-medicate themselves by utilizing fluoridated toothpaste. It is not necessarily that the entire human and animal population be exposed to fluoride, but by what amounts to a policy of forced medication via our water supply. And it should be noted and recognized that the fluoridation of the water supply was never an efficient way of delivering fluoride, even if you wanted to deliver it to help improve your teeth, since only about 1% of the water is actually consumed or ingested anyway, and then your body has to detox that fluoride that you ingest. Further, local microbreweries would rather use unfluoridated water to prepare their brew, and many have chosen to utilize water from their own wells or to actually add fluoridation removal systems than from using the municipal water. So, in summary, I urge the City Council members to revisit the issue of fluoridation of the municipal water system. Watch the Fluoride Gate movie, investigate. I believe there is irrefutable evidence that this toxic chemical should be eliminated from our water supply system as soon as possible. And I would add that the City of Brevard removed fluoride from their water about 12 years ago, based solely on one question: whether it is the role of government to medicate people through their water. Okay?
Thank you,
Now,
Mr. Taylor.
One short thing, I added to the back of your copies, and I will give everyone a copy here, that fluoride has
down to
officially
3
classified as a neurotoxin in the world's most prestigious medical journal published by Harvard University. And I have that reference on the back of this sheet.
Thank you.
All right? And I'll
Okay.
bring up some copies for you folks.
Is there anyone online seeking recognition?
Madam Mayor, Crystal Colley has raised her hand.
Okay. Crystal Colley. And again, if you give your name and address for the clerk's record, please.
Crystal Colley, 627 5th Avenue West, Hendersonville. My comment is that goes like this. The city of Hendersonville, North Carolina, goes above and beyond to serve the citizens, tourists, and the workforce here. I am disappointed that I have not seen any recognition for Hispanic Heritage Month on this city's Facebook page. Hispanic Heritage Month celebrates those who have heritage from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and South America. We have a large population here in the county as well as the city to celebrate amazing people who need to be recognized for their achievements and contributions who are Hispanic and have that ancestry from the countries that I mentioned. A lot of people who have Hispanic heritage, they have influenced and enriched our city as well as our lives here in Hendersonville. I would like to also say that the Hispanic Heritage Month, it always runs from September the 15th until October the 15th. So we only have a few more days that the city could actually step out, step up, and recognize this month by social media. We have plenty of Mexican restaurants here, stores, grocery stores. You could go visit these places and speak with the owners and learn more about the culture and show that you are interacting with this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Colley. Is there anyone else seeking recognition?
No, ma'am.
All right. There were some digital comments submitted first from Brenda Hankinson, 232 Snowy Egret Way, and all of these are related to the same issue. I'm against the developer's plan for the Half Moon Heights development zoning variance. I'm a registered voter residing in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Next one is Karen Casper, 3503 Wood Duck Way. Please do not remove 73% of the trees. Cannot believe they are planning to do that. We need all the trees we have. We also do not need another unit of homes in this area. Traffic is bad enough now. We don't need more vehicles in this area. I'm referring to the area around Wolf Pen 1 and 2. We do not need Half Moon in this area. I'm sure they can find another location for their project. Since I moved here 12 years ago, I have seen trees come down and houses go up. Enough is enough. Thank you for the opportunity to express our thoughts. Fred Hankinson, 232 Snowy Egret Way. I'm a registered voter residing in Hendersonville. I'm against the Half Moon Heights development plan for several reasons. One, traffic will be hazardous as it is already backed up during the school sessions and apple season on 64 East. Two, flooding and erosion major problems could develop if approved. Three, tree removal will cause additional noise, wind and erosion problems, as well as affect our wildlife, nesting, etc. And finally, Kenneth and Margaret Collins of 28 Wild Pheasant Run. We oppose Half Moon Heights development due to tree removal, flooding issues, and dangerous traffic concerns. Okay. That is all of the public comment. Consideration of the agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have added to or removed from the agenda? Or a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council approve the agenda as presented.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of approving the agenda as presented say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. We have our agenda. Consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda so it can be discussed? Or a motion to approve the items?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of approving the items on the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and those items are approved. Okay, we have some presentations this evening. The first one is for Fire Prevention Month. More coming from this one. Right up in front here. Okay. All right, this is Fire Prevention Month 2021. Whereas the City of Hendersonville, North Carolina is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all living in and visiting Hendersonville, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas home fires killed more than 2,770 people in the United States in 2019, according to the National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the United States responded to 339,500 home fires. And whereas the smoke alarms sense smoke well before you can, alerting you to the danger in the event of fire, in which you may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half, and Hendersonville's residents should be sure everyone in the home understands the sounds of the alarm and knows how to respond. And whereas Hendersonville's residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and are therefore more likely to survive a fire, residents should practice their home fire escape drill at least twice a year, during the day and at night. And whereas Hendersonville's residents will make sure their smoke and CO, carbon monoxide, alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory or physical disabilities. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half and should be installed in every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home. When the smoke alarm sounds, every occupant of the home should respond by going outside immediately to the designated meeting place. And whereas Hendersonville's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education, our residents are responsive to public education measures and can take action to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2021 Fire Prevention Week theme, Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety, effectively serves to remind us it is important to learn the different sounds of smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Now therefore, I, Barbara Wolf, Mayor of the City of Hendersonville, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Fire Prevention Month in the City of Hendersonville and commend its observation to all citizens. Thank you. Thank you. You want to say something?
I want to remind everybody that November 7th, this year is daylight savings, so when time falls back, make sure you are replacing the batteries in your smoke detector and test those every month.
Okay.
And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, we have some folks from, for American Pharmacists Month. Do you want to come on up here? However you want to do it. Okay. Okay, and you are?
My name is Ariana Lance.
Ariana Lance, thank you. So this is Proclamation for American Pharmacists Month. Whereas, as pharmacy is one of the oldest of the health professions devoted to maintaining the health and well-being of all people, and whereas the Wingate University School of Pharmacy, Hendersonville, North Carolina campus contributes to over 300,000 licensed pharmacists in the United States who provide services to assure the rational and safe use of all medications. And whereas the use of medications as a cost-effective alternative to more expensive medical procedures is becoming a major force in moderating overall health care costs. And whereas today's powerful medications require greater attention regarding the way they are used by different patient population groups, both clinically and demographically. And whereas it's important that all users of prescription and non-prescription medications and/or their caregivers be knowledgeable about and share responsibility for their own drug therapy. And whereas pharmacists are specifically educated with a focus on and level of expertise in medication therapy that exceeds that of other healthcare providers, making them ideally suited to work collaboratively with other healthcare providers and patients to improve medication use and outcomes. And whereas pharmacists help to fully optimize patients' access to medications and provide patient care services that ensure the best possible medication therapy management. And whereas the state of North Carolina recognizes pharmacists for their many contributions to health care in our state and nation, and commends their ongoing service to our communities. Now, therefore, I, Barbara Volk, Mayor of the City of Hendersonville, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as American Pharmacists Month in the City of Hendersonville and commend its observance to all citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to say thank you for the recognition on behalf of your healthcare pharmacists.
Okay.
Happy October. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right, our next presentation, Mr. Polly, Ms. Justice, Social Media Recruitment Campaign. Who is...
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. I'll start off and then hand it over to Ms. Justice. So we wanted to brief you a little bit about just some recruitment work we've been doing from a marketing and advertising perspective this evening, and just a little bit behind kind of what we were thinking about is, we had John Jones come out to our council retreat in 2019. We did a great pitch party exercise on kind of what our story is as a city of Hendersonville, and I think marketing is one really strong way that we can continue to do that. Additionally, I saw a billboard outside of Shelby as I was driving through. It's not actually the Winston-Salem one there, it was for Durham, and I couldn't think. I said, we can do better than that. And all I could think actually was, well, Allison can do better than that, but not myself. And ultimately, we have a really high quality of service here in the city of Hendersonville, and our goal is to provide high quality of service. We want to hire the best employees, and if we're not telling our story and if no one knows about us or where we are, how are we going to actually attract the best employees? So that's kind of how we started down this path. So I'll turn it over to Allison.
Thank you for having me speak today, Mayor and City Council. Some of our big ideas as we started thinking about this pilot project were we wanted to promote Hendersonville as a desirable place to live and work. We wanted to highlight the strong quality of life enjoyed in our area. We also wanted to show the balance between a small town charm and larger city amenities. Hendersonville finds a great balance with that. We also wanted to show that we had a large amount of recreational opportunities in the area, and we wanted to focus on drawing employees from our local area and outside Hendersonville. And here's some of the marketing photos we worked on. Hashtag Hendo is hiring, so for anyone who's listening online, they can go to our website and check out our job opportunities. But some of the other things we wanted to focus on are you as City Council and the things you have been doing to support our employees, whether that's benefits, pay study, those kinds of things. We also wanted to highlight that our employees are more than just employees. They come to work here, but they are also active in the community and out on the outskirts of Hendersonville and in Henderson County. We also wanted to share about our strong organizational culture and draw attention to our service excellence program. So those are some of the things we've done to try to place Hendersonville as a competitive regional employer, at least with this digital marketing campaign. A little bit of a timeline. We started working with a marketing firm called Ring of Fire out of Greenville, South Carolina. They have a great company that's focused on digital marketing, and they also do content creation in-house. They've got some amazing professionals working there. We also did some employee engagement to reach out to our team to see who might be good candidates for this and also have interesting interests outside of work and inside of work. In July, we set up 2 filming days, and we appreciate the department heads working with us on logistics because they did have to loan employees to us for those 2 days of shooting. We really appreciate that. In August, we were working on video editing with multiple reviews to the video, and also creating graphics and working on the campaign development. Starting the second week of September, we had some paid ads starting to run, and we'll get into the details of that in a moment. And throughout September, leading into October, we've been adjusting those job postings as positions are filled. We'll take marketing dollars away from that campaign and place it onto new jobs that have been opening. So just to show you, we have 2 recruitment videos created so far. These have been on YouTube and Google Ads, as well as Instagram campaigns. So we'll show you.
The main thing that brought me to Hendersonville was the area, the mountains. There's a lot of things to do, a lot of places to go. The weather is awesome. I really like to bike and hike and get outside and be able to do stuff. And you can do that year-round around here.
I love the people. Everybody I meet is super friendly. That goes all the way down to like my coworkers. Like there's just a lot of really good quality people in this area.
All kinds of people work here in the city. We tend to know that the job gets done best when we work together, and like I said before, we've made some really good friends here.
It's nice to work with people that have the same goal. We're all just trying to make a difference, really.
You know, there's definitely a broad range of different career paths, whether professional or operational, that you can get into.
Being the events coordinator, I definitely rely on teamwork to get it done.
The city has a lot of competitive things about it as far as benefits, pay, the schedule that we get, and then the opportunities that we have if you work here.
All trails lead to Hendo.
So as you can see in that little snippet, we have a ton of talent, on-screen talent, as well as what our employees are doing out in the community. So that was the more interview-based video that we created. We also have a more anthem-based video that's on our website, and like I said, running on ads. Here is just, our working title was Man on the Street or Woman on the Street, but for this video, here's just a snapshot of some of the engagement it's been getting online. These have been at least partially viewed by more than 125,000 viewers on this video, and we're seeing about equal numbers on the other video. We're establishing budgets per month. If dollars need to be moved around, that's what our marketing team at Ring of Fire is assisting us with, on what reach they're getting, what geographic areas we're targeting, and those kinds of things. As you can see, we have a much higher click rate to our website to look at our hiring posts, much higher than before we're doing our basic postings with no paid advertising behind it. And about 10% watch the whole video the way through, which in this day and age, we're doing pretty well on that.
Can I ask you a question? These statistics here, how do you know that? Does Ring of Fire provide those statistics, or do we just know that?
It's a combination. We have weekly meetings with them where they provide updates looking on the paid ad side, and we can log in and look at those as well. And a little later on, you'll see we also have some analytics running on our own website. So we're balancing, seeing who's clicking the ads, who's actually making it to our website, and we have a pixel installed that's tracking how many people hit apply now. Now, not all those people submit a completed application and those kind of things, but we are, they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but we're keeping an eye on it as well. On Facebook and LinkedIn, rather than the overall vision of Hendersonville, we've been focusing more on job-specific ads. So here's just a small sample of some of our live here, work here theme. For example, we had one with Holly, our battalion chief, but that position was filled. So as positions are filled, we can transfer those dollars.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the employees agreed to do this, right? Are they, as far as them agreeing to do this, we're not running into any issues with regard to their picture being on the city website and all those kind of things? We can market these all we want, no problem.
Yes, we haven't. We definitely would have, we wouldn't have chosen employees that weren't willing to participate.
Okay, sorry, just asking.
But it's been great. We did have a lot of response with the survey we sent out, and our team had a really good time putting these together. This is just a snapshot of one of our officer ads. You can see the reach and impressions. Facebook, it has so far been a good deal cheaper than LinkedIn, which, speaking with our marketing team, that's absolutely normal. There's not as many people on LinkedIn, but we find there's more serious applicants and candidates. So the cost per click is worth paying for on LinkedIn because we're getting people who are more specifically looking for jobs and not just sometimes scrolling through Facebook and just being curious. This is a little bit, just a snapshot of some of the metrics we're tracking. The top screenshot is from our hiring and employment postings. So as you can see in early September, just with doing basic unpaid ads, that was the viewership and clicks we were getting, and you see a pretty big uptick around September 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th when we started running ads. And the bottom is the pixel that's installed for when people actually hit apply now. Like I said, this isn't completed applications, but we are definitely driving traffic to our pages. So I'll bring Mr. Polly back up for a few next steps.
Thanks, Allison. So ultimately, this was kind of a pilot project. We know hiring is extremely difficult now. Our staff know how difficult it is to hire right now. Something that we felt was worthwhile putting some dollars behind to get our name out there. So from here, it's really taking a look at a survey we did at the beginning of this project. We'll have ads running through November is what the budget we have, and then we'll come back and survey at the end, kind of look at the return on investment, see if we've seen any marked improvement or even just is driving traffic to Hendersonville enough. But also we know with hiring bonuses, pay and classification programs, and looking at our benefits, there's opportunities to do some additional, I think, advertising and marketing surrounding exactly what we have to offer, this being more of a look at the culture here, and then we can do some more specific short 8-second, 15-second marketing spots based on the benefits we offer. Ultimately, this might run into a larger scale branding for the city if the city council so desires, and I think there's also opportunities with our upcoming comp plan refresh and 175th anniversary. And with that, we'll stand by for any questions.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just would like to compliment you.
Mhm.
It adds all the pop to it for catching, eyeballs of kids who are out of college looking for a place to live. It definitely has the visual aspect that I think is going to attract people to at least look. They may not apply, and they may not remember it for 2 or 3 years, but like, oh, I remember that place, Hendersonville. That is very impressive work that you guys did there.
Thank you, and I would like to express our appreciation to Ring of Fire. They are a very professional team with great equipment, skills in editing, and most importantly to our in-house talent that agreed to be a part of this. Definitely a group effort, and thank you to council for allowing us to do this.
Very good.
Sing a Johnny Cash song.
All right, recognition of water and sewer crews.
Mayor, vote, members of City Council, we had, upon Councilmember Miller's suggestion, we were going to recognize our water and sewer crews for what a great job they do during hazardous weather and events. However, tonight, they are out dealing with hazardous weather and events, so they're not here. So we're going to postpone this recognition to when it's bright and sunny, and they can be here.
I think maybe we just need to mail it so we don't tell them when, so maybe we won't have more of this, but it was incredible weather, even worse than this when I started doing a little bit of homework. I like to just know how all the pieces come together. And we just take a lot of things for granted, and when we have the opportunity to have them here and make their presentation, you will no longer take a lot of the things for granted, like a toilet flushing and, water not coming in the doors, under the doors. They do incredible work along with, obviously, the fire department and police department and keeping us all safe. So I look forward to hearing it. It's worth the listen. I picked him to death until he finally opened up on it, and then I was like, this is crazy. So thanks, John, for setting it up. Sorry about the weather.
They do appreciate the recognition. They'll be here in a month or so, but they got tied up.
All right, thank you. Public hearings. We have a conditional zoning district, Providence Walk.
Council members, Madam Mayor, good evening. Good to see you all. Yes, we have a application tonight for a CZD for Providence Walk. This is a application that involves 5 parcels, 2 of which are currently zoned R20, but the lion's share of the other 3 parcels are currently zoned PCD, and they're proposing to rezone all 5 to PRD, planned residential development. The total site is just over 20 acres. They're proposing single-family detached homes on 93 lots. It comes out to 4.6 units per acre. There are actually 2 neighborhood compatibility meetings for this. The project added 2 small parcels and also originally had included 28 apartments at the rear of the site. They removed those apartments and added 2 parcels, and so they had to kind of start the process again, and they had another neighborhood compatibility meeting. But the topics discussed at those meetings were similar. Questions about security as it related to the neighboring residential developments, as well as connection that we'll talk about to neighboring Oklawaha Village, the impact of traffic on North Main Street, tree preservation on the site, and the management of stormwater. As I mentioned, current zoning, you see the 2 small parcels that are currently zoned R20, the rest being PCD, and then the PRD for the entire site. Do take note of the dog leg or flag portion that extends down towards Mud Creek. It's not a major focus of the site, but I do want to acknowledge that that is part of the parcel and it is not proposed for development. You'll also see it here on the future land use map. You can see that that portion is designated as natural resource and agricultural due to the floodplain in that area. But the rest of the site is designated as medium intensity neighborhood, and it sits adjacent to a high intensity neighborhood and regional activity center along Duncan Hill, which has commercial zoning, commercial uses as it extends towards 64. The medium intensity neighborhood designation primarily focuses on it being a transition between low intensity neighborhood and the high intensity neighborhood, and providing opportunities for infill development and making sure that the developments that occur there are walkable in nature. And so there's some development guidelines that are an important aspect of this. The land use plan calls for a density between 2 to 8 units per acre. As I mentioned, this is right in the middle of that at 4.6 units per acre. Calls for at least 60% open space. This project is at 71.5% open space, so they're exceeding that. The comp plan calls for architectural guidelines. You'll hear some mention of that in some of the conditions that have been proposed, as well as the last bullet there, encouragement of walkable neighborhood design, that is also addressed in one of the conditions, at least partially. Looking at Chapter 2 of the comprehensive plan, you take a little bit closer look at that walkable neighborhood design, and you'll see that it calls for recessed or rear garages and front porches. And so that's an important aspect of creating a walkable environment or pedestrian-friendly environment. It also talks about programming the public spaces or the open space. At this point, we don't have that level of detail in the site plan, though they have set aside open space throughout the development. We just don't know how it's going to be programmed at this stage. When we look at the natural and environmental resources chapter, Chapter 3, it talks about clustering development in order to preserve larger chunks of open space. You'll see the red box there, which I'll have it blown up the next slide of the area. That area was actually where the 28 apartments were slated to go. It is sloped and it has the greatest tree cover in terms of mature trees, and it's adjacent to a pond that's on the site. And so that area is not being disturbed as part of the proposal. And so that falls in line with this promotion of the preservation of woodlands that's also found in our comp plan. And then I mentioned earlier about the utilization of open space. Again, we don't have that level of detail other than just kind of leaving some natural areas, but that is also called for in our comprehensive plan. So taking a look at the existing conditions, starting the upper left, you have what is a typical site of the main portion of the site that is proposed to be developed. It was once agricultural land. Some trees have popped up. There's not very large mature trees or anything like that. And so that's just kind of a typical view. I mentioned the pond on the site. That can be seen in the upper middle picture. The picture on the upper right is the wooded area that's adjacent to the pond that's proposed to be undisturbed, and you can see some of the large mature trees there. Bottom left, that is actually a picture of what is a platted public right-of-way that connects over this hill to Strict Garden Lane. And then a similar or kind of a view in that same area in the middle at the bottom is Duke Power right-of-way transmission line that runs along the side of this property in between Oklawaha Village and this proposed Providence Walk. And then bottom right is just another view from, I think that's near the pond, just how you can see this kind of this relationship between where this development is going to go and the existing development that is adjacent to the site. I mentioned this area that's wooded. Just want to highlight that there are 196 trees that are over 12 inches in diameter at breast height. 125 of those are slated to be preserved. And that mainly is due to the fact that they removed the apartments from the proposed plan. So taking a look at the site plan, some things to point out are the main entrance at the bottom left part of the screen along North Main Street down here. There's a second entrance proposed up here. You'll see in the condition that second entrance is proposed to be a right in, right out. There's also a condition to propose a decel lane into this main entrance. You see the layout of the lots, the setbacks that are proposed. There is a developer proposed condition related to setbacks that I will explain. You see the interconnected street system internal to the site, as well as the connections to a couple of important areas. So Strict Garden Lane runs right here. At the bottom of the screen, there's a platted right-of-way up to the edge of the property there. They're proposing to connect to that existing stubbed-out street. I'll have some more information on that as well. And then going out the rear of the property, you see a platted right-of-way that will connect to this vacant parcel. And I've got some additional information on that as well. And then there is open space in a couple of locations here and up in this corner as well, and a few other spots that are kind of little pockets of land that's can't be fully utilized for residential purposes. So as I mentioned, the public right-of-way, this is the final plat for Oklawaha Village, which is adjacent, and there is kind of a blown-up shot here of this platted right-of-way, and this says it's a 45-foot wide public right-of-way. And so that 45 feet is what we require for local streets, so that width matches up what we would require for a street. It is not, that can be utilized for streets, for utilities, sidewalks, but it is not specifically, a sewer easement or limited to utility use or anything like that. That is not placed on the plat. Yes, sir.
Would a Greenway work there as well?
You mean like a pedestrian connection?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's proposed, it would be required to have sidewalks as well.
Okay.
It would
The Greenway would be required to have sidewalks?
No, a street. The street connection,
No.
that is.
What if you didn't do a street? If you did a Greenway, would that fall within what's allowed there?
Yes, you could have it's public right-of-way, so a multi-use trail would be permitted there.
Okay.
And so just taking a look at those connections that are proposed. So first you have, this is from our subdivision ordinance, and so the reason why this connection is being shown is to ensure compliance with our subdivision ordinance. And so under item C there, you see it says, the arrangement of streets in a development shall provide for the alignment and continuation of existing or proposed streets into adjoining lands in those cases in which the adjoining lands are undeveloped and deemed appropriate by the DRC, the Development Review Committee, for future development, or in which the adjoining lands are developed and include opportunities for such connections. So that's the basis for that. There's an existing platted right-of-way that provides this opportunity for connectivity, and connectivity is a goal of the city to appropriately handle our disbursement of traffic and address traffic congestion as we develop.
We can jump back to, I like what Mr. Smith asked just about the Greenway.
Yeah.
Jerry, does that need to go in this? If there's an opportunity for it, which is the better route here? That's an interesting.
Well, once we get a little further along, I'm going to suggest that we don't put a road there, we put a greenway that emergency vehicles can use. So it's not automotive traffic that connects the neighborhoods, but it's a greenway.
Okay, that's why I said I like that, and it sounded like a great option.
So that's what, when we get a little bit later, that's what I'm going to propose we do.
Sorry, I jumped
No problem.
on.
No,
I just
that's
liked it. I started looking at it, and I was like, I really like that. So, okay.
So, so continuing on, the other connection that goes out the back of the property, that relates to item D, which is, it relates to item C as well, but to continue on, the street right-of-way shall be extended to or along adjoining property boundaries such that a roadway connection or street stub shall be provided for the development where practicable and feasible in each direction, north, south, east, and west, for development which abuts vacant lands. So you see why there was a connection from Ocklawaha to this vacant parcel, and why we are thus creating another platted right-of-way to the vacant parcel to the rear. This is all kind of working together so that as land continues to be developed, we have an interconnected street system. And we're not necessarily pushing all traffic out to one single point for it to be dispersed onto arterial.
Hold on a second. That last comment, we're not pushing traffic onto one single point for arterial. The arterial you're talking about is North Main.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we can, if there's more questions about that, I'm happy to try and address them. Sounds like there will be. So this site was proposed, was reviewed by the Development Review Committee. It is generally compliant with our zoning code and subdivision standards, and it is consistent with our comprehensive plan, though there are some details that need consideration, and we feel like we've addressed those through the planning board's recommended conditions. Staff had no standalone conditions related to this. The tree board did have a recommendation that the developer utilize trees and shrubs from the recommended landscape species list for street trees and development projects, as well as to comply with section 15-4 of the zoning ordinance as it relates to the trees they are going to preserve, make sure those are preserved accordingly, and to require all new plantings be a minimum of a 2-inch caliper. I will note that the last part of that, the 2-inch caliper requirement, was not supported by the planning board. They did support the other portions of that tree board recommendation, and that's condition number 1 from their, from what their motion included. Condition 2 from the planning board was that the developer will work with staff to recess the garages and create longer driveways in accordance with the comp plan, Chapter 2, Population and Housing for Walkable Neighborhoods. I'll just note that that portion of the comp plan also recognizes the importance of front porches as it relates to that relationship between having a recessed garage and putting the front porch out.
Oh, would you mind explaining that again one more time, what you just said?
That
front porches?
So Chapter 2 of the comprehensive plan, where it discusses recessing garages, either putting garages to the rear, parking to the rear, or at least recessing the garage and having the front porch be the more prominent architectural feature of the house. And that's part of,
And they
that's one of
agree-
the strategies and recommendations related to creating walkable neighborhoods.
And they agreed to that?
We will hear from the developer tonight on their response to that.
Okay.
They didn't necessarily agree to it at the planning board.
That's
They
my
looked
question,
into
because
it, I guess.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then the last one is actually kind of two conditions. I think it has been split out in your suggested motion, is that there will be a right-in, right-out on the northern entrance. I believe that's actually the easternmost entrance. But the way that the plan was oriented, it looked like it was the northern entrance. And that the main entrance, which would be the western entrance, will include a deceleration lane. And so I believe those directional issues have been addressed in your suggested motion. And there's also a developer proposed condition that the setbacks for all the lots, the rear setback, be reduced to 20 feet. And so along the perimeter of the site, it would be, based on our zoning code, the PRD setback would be 30 feet. So they'd be going from 30 to 20. And then along North Main, those lots are actually double frontage. And so our subdivision ordinance calls for that to be a 25-foot. The zoning ordinance would allow for that to be reduced to 10, technically. But because it's double frontage, it would be a 25-foot. So they'd be going from 25-foot rear setback to a 20-foot rear setback. So that's a developer proposed condition. It's in your motion. My comment on that is that we did look at potential right-of-way dedication. We recognize that North Main and Duncan Hill and Signal Hill is really becoming a hot spot for development. A lot of development pressure in that area, a lot of traffic already on that, along those corridors, and more to come. So we looked at the potential for right-of-way dedication as a requirement of this. We did not have necessarily all the pieces in place to have the authority. We do have some authorities. We didn't feel like we were in a strong enough position to require it. And so if we reduce that setback on the North Main side, we'd be losing 5 feet that could potentially have, sheds or some type of other structures that are in those rear yards a little bit closer to North Main. And so if in the future DOT does come along and decide we need to improve North Main, it needs to be widened, there needs to be bike lanes, sidewalks, connections to the Greenway, bicycle and pedestrian connections, whatever it might be to program and better utilize that right-of-way, there could be a potential increase in the cost of that acquisition of right-of-way if it includes the buyout of structures. I know that's a lot.
That's great.
But I wanted to make sure that everyone followed that. And so just lastly, I've got the motion here. It's long.
Dear Lord.
Tiny print. But I'll open it up for questions.
Question.
I have a question about the setbacks that you just
Mm-hmm.
talked about. So those apply to basically the edge of the overall project. This is not individual, like, homes within the project, but the edges of the project, is that right?
That's correct. Where it abuts the neighboring parcels.
And so the one you described would be from 30 feet to 20 feet, and the other one would be potentially from 25 feet to 20 feet.
That's correct.
Right? Okay.
And we can pull the site plan. And
I just want to make sure we're talking about the edge of the property, not sort of between the houses and all that inside the property.
That's correct, though I do think those have a 20-foot right-of-way, setback.
Right, but we're not really, we're not talking about
Not talking about a reduction there.
Right, okay.
So, and the developers proposed, the language in the proposed condition from the developer is that it will permit the rear setback to equal 20 feet for all single-family residential lots, regardless of adjacent property uses or zoning. The single-family lots around the exterior of the parcel shall have a 20-foot wide setback. That's correct.
Is it drawn like that?
Is what?
Is it drawn like that, or is it drawn with 30
It is
foot?
drawn like that, and noted that.
So it's not drawn with the correct setback?
It is not, it is drawn with the proposed condition.
Right, it is not drawn with the existing zoning setback, is that right?
That is correct.
But you were saying that if we lower it specifically along those properties on North Main, then it could cause issues later when NCDOT may come in and decide to revamp that road, which I assume will be happening at some point in the future.
Potentially.
Better.
What issues?
That depending on how much right-of-way they need, and we don't know necessarily how much they have, it's kind of hard to determine. There is, then depending on how much they need, they would have to acquire
The land.
additional land for the right-of-way. And if that land includes structures, then that drives the cost of right-of-way acquisition up.
Yeah.
So if we reduce that setback, then that allows them to come closer, potentially, to North Main.
Can I ask you a quick, I'm sorry, my turn, I'll wait till my turn.
I'm hoping your question will help me. Go ahead.
I don't know, but, so on this drawing here, I mean, I have it in front of me. So on the houses that are around the edge of the property, that we're talking about the setbacks, is there a sidewalk there that's in front of those houses?
The sidewalk is on the opposite side of the street.
Okay, so
the
that's not a
dark
sidewalk in front.
Black is the,
All right, so I'm just looking at that hashed line in front of the houses, and then I see the road. That hashed line does not mark a sidewalk, is that correct?
that hash line
No, on the other side, yeah, that hash line, the one you just pointed at.
is,
Yeah, that one. That line right there that you're pointing at.
that's the setback line?
Right,
And
but
this
not-
is-
but not a
This is the
sidewalk.
building footprint line, the smaller square. That's the setback line. This line in between there and is right-of-way line.
Okay.
And that's the center line.
So in other words, if those houses were 30 feet away from the edge of the property, they're not imposing on an existing sidewalk? Or a proposed sidewalk?
No.
Sidewalks on the other side of the street?
That's correct.
Okay. That was my question. We all need a
Might have to
pointer.
help you.
We all need a pointer here.
That is a good question. Between that dash line, this solid line, which I think is the right-of-way, slash property line, but there's this other line in between. So we can have that clarified. By the
Sure.
bill.
It's hard to see up there. You got center line, edge of pavement.
Yep.
Front property line, and that's the setback.
So, okay, so edge of pavement is the darker.
Yeah.
Solid line.
That's the edge of the road.
That's the edge of the road,
Yeah.
edge of pavement, and then the right-of-way line slash property line is that dash line that you were asking about.
Right, that is not a sidewalk, right?
That
That's
is
what I was
not a
asking.
sidewalk.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So the deceleration lane that's going to be there, they're also still required to maintain the exact same right-of-way distance, even with the decel lane?
So in that particular spot, they have that portion of land is designated as open space, so it would not be encroaching into any lot that they have platted
Okay.
or proposed to be platted.
But it would still be the same right-of-way maintenance, like that, the 20-foot?
The 20-foot, so I think that would be dedicated to DOT for maintenance. It stays private?
No, the decel lane would require some additional right-of-way dedication.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And it would have to meet DOT standards for a deceleration lane. And I do not have any updates as far as DOT's comments on this, but the developer may. They've been in touch with them, so.
We never seem to have DOT when we need them at these meetings.
No comment.
Yeah. It's not your fault.
Other questions? We may have some more later.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the developer have a presentation? If you'd like to say anything?
I have no additional presentation unless you do, Travis. Travis Fowler is the developer. He's here as well. Travis, raise your hand so that folks can see who you are. Other than the site plan that's being presented here, which one is the laser? Okay, thank you. I want to point out that on this edge of the property, which is, it's called the eastern boundary of the property, although north is facing towards left on the screen here. There's a 20-foot unopened right-of-way there. And so that is sort of a legal, who knows what land, and so that's where we felt justified in reducing that setback, or felt like there was justification to reduce that setback because of this unopened right-of-way that exists between these parcels on the eastern boundary and our project here. So there's this 20-foot unopened right-of-way in that area that's currently not necessarily being used by anyone. There's not a driveway in it, there's not a building in it, there's nothing there. And additionally, on the western boundary, down here on this end of the project, there's another unopened right-of-way that exists, and there's also the issue of the Duke power line Duke transmission line that comes through there. So there's a pole right there, and it goes out this way. If you can see, there's a line that goes this direction, and that is the Duke right-of-way line that would act as a de facto setback on those lots that back up to the Duke power line. So there's a little bit of where we came away with the 20-foot reduced setback. The other one is against this area here on the southern boundary of the property. This is an existing commercial use of the property. It would be something that we were willing to understand and accept on that, to just reduce that setback to 20 feet. I have no more presentation than that. I'm more than happy to answer your questions as you go. I can talk through the project a little bit further, other than to say this is the existing pond. Some of that area will be reworked. We're working with the Army Corps of Engineers to determine how best to use that area. We will be required to meet the stormwater management requirements and of the city and work through that and do what we can to improve, enhance that pond. It's like most farm ponds that haven't been maintained over the years. It's got some challenges, so we're working through how that can be better used as an amenity for the development and for the community that we're working through.
Do you know if the pond is spring fed?
Well, I think we've had an environmental assessment of it done. I don't know I think it's collecting runoff. There's a pipe that goes through the property, through this kind of general area, that collects runoff from up here along the street and then takes it down through there, and then it just kind of comes out. So at the top end of this pipe, there's no water going into it. At the bottom end of the pipe, there's a small amount of water coming out of it. I assume that's groundwater that's leaching into the pipe somewhere, something along those lines. So if it's a spring, then yes, but there's not necessarily an obvious spring that's feeding this pipe.
Other questions?
Yes.
When you made your presentation to the planning board, were they aware that this drawing did not have the correct setbacks on it?
Unfortunately, I was not at that meeting. And so I'm going to defer to Matthew on that.
Yeah, it was made aware that the proposed condition from the developer was in place at that time.
Okay, because all right, it's not clear to me that they approved that, because it says developer proposed, so it's not clear to me what things they approved, unless they did. That's what I'm asking.
I cannot necessarily argue that, because it was not in their motion specifically that developer proposed condition be recommended to you, though they did not specifically, from what I can say or recall, they didn't specifically leave it out with intention. In other words, they did not discuss it and say, that's a really bad idea. We're not including that in our motion.
Okay, thank you. I have another question. On the drawing here, the rectangles, the trapezoids, are those meant to be what the actual is that like the lot somebody owns, or is that the shape of?
Let's look at this one right here.
Sure, there we go,
Most-
yes.
Most difficult one, correct?
Yes.
Probably the most difficult one. The inner line that you see in here are the dimensions of the setbacks.
Okay.
So you have this outer line,
Mhm.
that would be the property line.
And then inside of that line,
That's
that
correct.
box is the structure.
Yeah, the setbacks.
No,
Not
it's
necessarily-
inside the box or the triangle is where you build the
That's correct.
living
The
place.
house that meets the requirements, the architectural guidelines and everything else.
Yeah.
So as you look on these, yes, some of them are odd shaped. This one right here, we left as open space because once you offset the setbacks, there's not much room in there to really build very much. So that will be used as a garden space, community type area, playground, those type amenities that,
But but with regard to this, so the boxes, the trapezoids, the triangles, you can build literally right up to that line, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. That's all of my questions for you, sir.
Jerry, you want to buy that house?
Which one?
The triangle one?
The trapezoid house?
Trapezoid there?
Hey,
If,
triangle.
if I have to move again, I'm going to someplace where they take care of me.
Other questions? Okay. Anyone else want to make a presentation or comments? We'll get to the public hearing. We're not at that yet. This is for the developer. No? Okay. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes.
Okay, we will open this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to speak regarding this conditional zoning for Providence Walk? Anyone who'd like to speak? If you would come to the microphone, give your name and address for the clerk's record.
Okay, Ron Taylor, 22 Breeswood Street again. I have a general comment on this development, and it goes back to what I've seen in the community, and I'm wondering if these folks and developers have looked at the Flat Rock development in Highland Lake area by Kerry Lindsay, who's both the developer, owner, builder, whatever. They did a very good job in building some of those houses there, and I think this could be a very good model because they talk about the rear garages, they talk about a number of different features which are already present in that community, and I would ask Matthew and the other folks involved, have you actually been out to look at that development by Kerry Lindsay in Flat Rock at the Highland Lake Cove area? I would recommend it. That's basically what I want to say. I think they have a lot of good ideas they incorporated there that you folks might want to look, and I would encourage everybody from the City Council to go take a look at that development and see what kind of design features you might want to look for that they might want to include.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this development? Come forward. I believe Ms. Williams was.
Thank you. Hello, members of the council. Thank you for your time today. Okay, so my comments on this particular development, it's a medium-intensity neighborhood in the growth management plan. It's currently gray for preservation and enhancement. When I look at this plan, it does a great job at preserving that wooded tree area, but I do have to ask what's happened to the Blue Line stream. If you remember what happened when you were working with us on our property next door on Chadwick, we were reminded that Blue Line streams have to have a 15-foot buffer. Is that Blue Line stream in this plan? Is there a 15-foot buffer? If you do plan to pipe that Blue Line stream, that is going to have a great impact on flooding. So when, I'm sure you all are aware of this, but if you have an above-ground stream and you have a swale, then that's going to act as a sponge all the way through the property to help mitigate flooding. If you completely clear out the stream and pipe it, that cement pipe or whatever pipe you're going to use is not going to absorb the water. And I see that the plans are not in a flood stream, but they empty out, I'm sorry, a floodplain, but they empty out directly into a floodplain. So I just really think that you might want to double check what's going on with the blue line stream. And ideally preserve that blue line stream. You know, a blue line stream habitat is very important for our environment. I had a question about whether or not there's going to be a vegetative buffer between the Oklawaha neighborhood or not. It wasn't clear on here. And also, I heard the developer talk about a right-of-way that's currently, or a closed alleyway, an opened alley that is currently not used. My understanding is if you want to close an alleyway, you have to get permission from all the owners adjacent to that alleyway. Have you reached out to each owner as far as the impact of these change in setbacks and how that affects them and how they assume they could maybe use the alleyway? Let's see. I was noticing, you know, one of Mr. Smith's priorities, and many on the council, is for affordable housing, but I do not see this flagged for affordable housing, so it's really hard to understand, you know, the push for this very dense development. I do see that they're going to preserve 125 trees, but what they don't say is they're going to destroy 71 trees. And these are trees that just count for 12 inches DBH or greater, so that's not even counting for any trees that are smaller than that. Referring back to floodwater mitigation, okay, if you imagine a big tree, the rain hits it, and that's a sponge, and all the drops stay on the leaves and they hold it. When we get rid of trees, all those drops go nowhere except on the ground and go straight into the floodplain. It will increase flooding if you cut down trees. And at this rate of habitat destruction, that's a third of the trees for this development. It's just too great a loss for our community that cannot be replaced. And this affects our residents, our citizens, our first responders, flooding, and all of these things. Another thing is often people say, oh, it's a vacant lot. Well, a vacant lot is actually more than just a vacant lot. It's very useful ecologically for protecting the floodplain and also our natural resources and our environment. Thank you for your time today.
Ms. Williams, the city attorney told me that even though you gave it before, you have to give your address at this time as
Yes, 309 Chadwick Avenue.
Yeah, name and address.
Oh, I apologize.
Just so there's a record of who's speaking.
Lynn Williams, 309 Chadwick Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this?
Wouldn't we know?
Hi, I'm Lynn Clark. I live at 343 Yon Hill Road. And I came tonight to learn. It just seems like there are so many questions about this development. I come down Yon Hill Road in my car. I look across to Oklawaha Village, which doesn't have vegetation around it, and I see that project. And then I know there's this one that's going up over here with, sounds like a huge number of homes to me, and a little piece of property that goes from Oklawaha Village, and I can look over to Baldwin Avenue, and all this is going to be placed in there. It is impossible to turn left. We don't know what DOT is going to do. We have no idea. And in the meantime, I'm trying to live in my neighborhood, in my community. And talking earlier about small town communities but have those high, really neat amenities, it's like we're losing that. And I know you hear that all the time, but we're losing that. And I just, and then the comment was made about this area is a pressure point right now. Well, that doesn't make me feel good because I live on Yon Hill. And this development's going in. There's a plot of about 13 acres right there on Yon Hill that I don't know what's going to happen to that plot because I've heard it was advertised as multi-density housing. All of this, there's a lot of jargon that makes it really hard to understand what's coming into my neighborhood and how do I come and talk about it in an intellectual way so that it's not like me just coming in and saying this can't be done. I'm open to it, but I need to see things that don't make us a pressure point. And I have a little North Main to drive out on, take a left or a right on, and then there's these entrances going into this development. And I know down the road, not too far, there's this huge thing that has happened on Clear Creek where they have taken all the vegetation off. You can see it from the interstate. And all those houses and condominiums or townhouses are going to bring people right in on North Main. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do about the traffic then? How can you talk about a development if you don't know how you're going to manage the traffic? And I guess that's, to me, when I did a lesson plan in school, it was kind of like I had to know where I was trying to get, and I had to know I had the parts to get there. So that is my concern, is that it may work fine for this one, and then all these accommodations are made, but it's like, okay, then what's going to be the next one? And what accommodations? And is the DOT, like you said, you know, where are they in this discussion? And that, I mean, the traffic on Duncan Hill and Signal Hill is amazing to me. Every day I drive out of there, it's even more. And people are using, what is that, Balfour? They're cutting across from 25. It's just another way to get around Hendersonville. And it seems like we keep coming back to North Main as an artery into town, and we're putting even more houses on it, even more people on it. I just, it's like, okay, all right, neighborhood, we're going to have to get together, and we're going to have to know what's going on. And so I guess I'm here for the people who probably don't, they don't even realize what's going on around us. But I just, I'm a local kid, I've grown up here all my life, and I just really am concerned about what is going on. And there seems to be so many questions that are unanswered about making things work together, not just for one little spot, but for all of us, so that I know that as things are put in, there is a way that they're all working together, not this is one plan, this is one plan, and where's the DOT? Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Just to understand your comments, are you opposed to this development? Are you opposed to the number of houses in this development? If you had to sum up your thoughts there.
I'm opposed to that it seems to be in a piece without looking at the other pieces around it, like a quilt. Just like we have the Ocklawaha Village. I think there were things that were not done there that we were told would happen, vegetation, for example. So we have that issue there. Now we have this. And I know there's a possibility of something going on next door, and it's like, but how are we talking about the roads? How are we going to manage that number of people coming in North Main? I leave that to you guys. I don't understand a lot of this jargon about the setbacks and all of this. But I do know when I try to pull out on my little car coming out on North Main these days, there's a curve in North Main where this development's going in, and I can't see around through there. And you're adding how many more homes in there to where I'm in a dangerous situation. And I just think a lot of it's a safety issue. No, Mr. Smith, I just want it to be thought about more as, okay, if we do this, then the next person that comes along, are we looking at it piecemeal instead of just this is one area here that's a pressure point right now, and how is it all going to fit together in order to make it safe for those of us that have lived there a long time, like on Yon Hill. And so that's my concern. That's my real concern, about a coordinated effort so that we're all safe. That's what I'm concerned about.
Thank you.
Yeah, parts of this I just don't understand enough. It's not my background. That's where I hope the people that are on the committees understand these things. And of question developers in order to come up with what's the best for our area, rather than just, this is the one, we're going to do this one time, then the next time we're going to let another one do this. And, you know, and you've got vacant property beside you, and you're going, okay, what's going to happen there? And we still, you know, traffic's an issue. And I, you know, the whole thing about DOT to me is a huge part of this, how we're going to manage it. Yeah. So, and I don't know about a turn right lane and a turn into lane and deceleration. There's already one there for Ocklawaha. And so it doesn't make it any easier for me to see to get out on the road.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. Appearing here at some risk in the continuing pandemic, but our neighbors are at risk, as we have just heard. Children are at risk, and our values challenged, so speaking also on behalf of others at their request. We envision ourselves as a vibrant mountain city where the government and citizens work together for a high quality of life. As a mountain city, our comings and goings and our interactions are shaped by our geography. With its mountain and foothill terrain, its now vanishing forests, and our wetlands that flood with each succeeding excessive rainfall. Yes, as in the mountains, the water runs downhill. To negotiate this varied terrain, the roads need to be narrow and winding, and are easily compromised by our four seasons weather events. And when we alter and overload our relationship to geography, major issues appear. Such is the case here. As this high-density development that you are being asked to approve in its present form appears on a narrow, winding road in a segment with multiple existing driveway interactions with poor visibility. A segment that experiences major traffic at times during the day, and many accidents have occurred. The addition of almost 200 vehicles and more in the future to the stressed interactions at this specific location presents major traffic safety issues. One of the controversial and frankly very disturbing innovations of the site plan is to pave an existing right-of-way, previously understood to be for utility access, but in order now to create a road into the adjacent Ocklawaha Village development. If one walks down Strict Garden Lane in the adjacent Ocklawaha Village, at almost every home one sees a bicycle. But not just one bicycle, two bicycles, sometimes three bicycles, and yes, sometimes four bicycles, along with tricycles and scooters and baby strollers. And at almost every other home one sees a basketball hoop, freestanding or attached to a home. And on many a day there will be improvised soccer games on the front lawns with informal teams of all ages. This adjacent Ocklawaha Village development is not just a development. It has become a neighborhood, energized by its sense of community and perhaps best defined by its children, whose presence gives hope for a vibrant future. We often speak here of affordable housing. Affordable housing. Affordable housing. And workforce housing. Workforce housing. One of the residents here has worked on the renovations of this very building. workforce housing, and diversity. 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 This Okawaha village is a neighborhood with affordable housing, workforce housing, and diversity. But why then would we construct a road to bring traffic right down the main street of this neighborhood where children play and ride their bicycles and every other vehicle? Why would we do such a thing? Why would we do such a thing? As one of the few recent developments that include affordable workforce, housing, and diversity, should we not be celebrating and uplifting this neighborhood and its vibrant sense of community? Why would we undertake an action that would degrade the quality of life of those who live here? What message would we send about the character of our commitment? And what about this road? On a right-of-way that the homeowners, the residents, and housing assistants understood was for utility access. As we are Mountain City, Hendersonville, it is no surprise that the right-of-way is not flat. It has several grades, north to south and west to east. So the task here is more than just a call to Tar Heel Paving to bring a truck of asphalt up the hill. And we are replacing a pervious surface with an impervious surface. What happens with the stormwater? And there's a blue line stream in the area. And what about the proximity to the major power pole? So will this road follow the existing geographical contours with inevitable sightline issues? Or will it bulldoze a canyon between the two homes with potential for major impacts for those homes on both sides? And what about Perkins Place? Perkins Place. No one has mentioned that, but there is an intersection there. What would happen there? Housing assistants testified that the roads were not intended for through traffic. But this raises a question. Is it legal for a new development to alter the infrastructure within another neighborhood? And again, why are we doing this intrusion into another neighborhood? Is it because Providence Walk be located on a very dangerous segment of North Main Street where additional vehicle entries and exits would increase? And they would increase the dangerous interactions? But what about the dangerous interactions with Strict Garden Lane, where the drivers may not be as proficient and their vehicles are bicycles, tricycles, scooters, and baby strollers, and the pedestrians no higher than this podium? There is a contention that this project will be in compliance with the zoning ordinance and its standards. But there are inconsistencies here and points of disagreement. As previously referenced in another meeting by housing assistants, and is stated directly in 7-11C, the development shall be so designed as to provide direct access to the development without creating substantial additional traffic in residential neighborhoods outside the development. Clearly, the additional traffic through the adjacent neighborhood is an issue here. Do we really need this connecting road? For conditional zoning, there are standards that the City Council shall consider in their determination. One finds particular relevance in compatibility with surrounding uses. The road connection to Strict Garden Lane is not an action of compatibility. Some would consider it a hostile act. And regarding the effect on the natural environment, the revision from the original plan has removed the originally planned apartment buildings from that existing forested area of the site, and that is most welcome. However, without a dedicated easement in place and the clear statement on the site plan indicating future development, that benefit will eventually be nullified, placing the forest and abundant wildlife habitat at risk and bringing more traffic to the adjacent neighborhood and North Main Street. However, the most serious consideration here should be public interest. To determine whether this development pattern, which includes the connecting route, benefits the surrounding neighborhood, is in the public interest, and promotes public health, safety, and general welfare. But the pattern here does not benefit, but instead degrades the adjacent neighborhood, and certainly does not promote safety, and instead promotes a hazard to the adjacent neighborhood, but also to the segment of North Main Street where it is located. What is most disappointing and frustrating here is why, with all the imagination and experience and skills in the world, why can we not figure out another way to do this? Either with downsizing, alteration, or more compatibility with the site and its neighbors. Do we really need that connecting road? And yes, why not a Greenway? But thus far, changes have been resisted. Or is it just not possible to place a high-density development at this location without intractable issues, as you just heard from the other speaker? Issues that diminish the high quality of life for those in the surrounding area. It is that high quality of life and the small town neighborhood character of our mountain city that so many here cherish. And many have poured all their resources into establishing a home where they can raise a family in a vibrant, caring community, or where retirees can spend their golden years in peace and safety. But safety and quality of life are issues here. But again, we are confronted with the seeming priority issues of development, growth, and more growth. And now we must look to the future. But for many of us, for many here, our hopes and dreams for the future are invested in the lives of our children. And here they are placed at risk. So please, tonight, do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this project? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Jeff Duty, 156 Yon Hill Road. That's a hard act to follow right there, but I have some concerns, some of which Mrs. Clark spoke about. Give me a minute here, I'm getting my bearings here. One thing that concerns me is 90 houses, and they list it as, at the last meeting, I thought it was 19 acres, and now it's 20. But it's not really 90 houses on 20 acres. It's 90 houses on 12 acres. And Matt mentioned that it was 4.6 units per acre, but it's actually like 7.5 units per acre. I believe the lots are listed at like 0.08 of an acre or 0.10. I went to high school in Hendersonville. I'm originally from Connecticut. After high school, I moved back to Connecticut. And I had enough because it was this whole, Norwalk is great, everybody move here, we're moving. Well, guess what? You can't move. Traffic is bad. It's not a nice place to live. You can call as many people as you want, but someday the ones that really care about where they live are just going to want to leave. The mayors have both left. Parks and Rec guy that was there for 20 years left. So that's one issue. I agree with everybody that Strictly Avenue. I hope that you guys are familiar with North Main. where the project is and travel that road frequently, that there's curves from both directions, highs and lows. It's not a great spot, which is why at the meeting they recommended that they go out of Strictly, which I adamantly oppose because I live on Yon Hill Road. And in fact, the drainage from Strictly is a problem at Yon Hill Road. The water comes straight across North Main. It goes down into a culvert. The road is torn up at Yon Hill Road. The road is degrading. And it goes down to another culvert that's smaller than the one at Yon Hill. So I just hope that we look at the infrastructure, we look at roads, and I understand we need places for people to live, and that's great. But nice places to live, you know, communities. They say that it's walkable, but I'm not really sure that that is, because the driveways are a one-car driveway, so there's going to be cars in the street. It doesn't snow much here, but when it does, that's an issue. How do you clear the roads when there's cars in the road? The proposed roads are narrow. I'm a beekeeper too. The pond concerns me. They want to do things with the ponds. And, you know, typically when there's a development goes in, they treat ponds with something that kills bees. Hendersonville's bee city, right? So there's a lot of different issues. I'm not opposed to development. You know, there's another lot for sale. Well, it went under contract. It's 13 acres. It abuts my mother's property. And, I mean, North Main is going to need to be widened. And why we're waiting to put developments in and then buy property back after the fact. I mean, this has been in the plans and the works for a long time. So I'm a little confused why we're putting the cart before the horse. But, I mean, that's up to you guys. I'm not trying to be smart or anything. I'm just letting you know what I'm thinking. So forgive me if I come across rude. That's not my intention at all. I think that's it. They mentioned HOAs, which I hope the council takes a look at, because I've heard of HOAs where companies, the builders have an in with the HOA, and some of those fees, there's no cap on it. So I hope for developments that you guys take a look at that, not just on this one, but when you see HOAs, if there's caps on those, I hope that's something that you take a look at. Anyway, thank you much for your time. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Ely. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak regarding this development? Anyone else who'd like to speak regarding this development? Is there anyone online seeking recognition?
Yes, ma'am. Tony Marie, you've been unmuted.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes,
yes,
if you would give your name and address, please.
I live at 101 Frog Creek Place in Etowah. I just had a couple of quick questions. What are the side setbacks between the homes there? Does anybody know?
12 feet.
We're checking.
Thank you.
On either, so it would be 12 feet between.
It would be 12, at a minimum 12 between wall to wall. Does that make sense?
So that would be a 6-foot setback on each side.
That's correct.
Wow. And do you have any idea what the average square footage is per unit?
Paperwork.
That's not something that's regulated by
It's
this.
not required at this point.
That's not something we can regulate through conditional zoning.
There's no maximum square footage or minimum square footage requirements, just height setbacks.
All right, and does anybody know at this point if there's any plan for permeable asphalt to be used in there?
We do not have that requirement, and that has not been discussed at this point or stated by the developer. It would not be, the roads would definitely not be There'd have to be some discussion if the driveways and sidewalks were to be, and that would have to be reviewed and approved by our Public Works Department.
Okay. It just glancing at this and not really knowing anything about it until this evening, it just seems like it's too many units on too small a space. Everybody looks to me like they'd be pecking there like sardines. And I can see why people that live in the area are not in favor of any of this. But thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? No.
No, ma'am.
Okay. One last chance. Anyone who would like to speak regarding this? Not, we'll close that public hearing. Council, discussion?
Is there such thing as permeable asphalt? Is that even a thing?
I am
I'm
not
just
an
asking.
asphalt specialist.
Okay, sorry.
I believe
I
I've heard
didn't
of
even know that was a thing.
how well it works, what happens
Right,
after
okay.
the water goes through it.
No problem. Well, I'll start.
Okay.
Since I made the comment a while ago. Couple of things. Number one, I don't think the planning board got an accurate drawing of this project because they did not draw it with the correct setbacks. And there's no indication to me, it was provided that they specifically chose not to address that. I just don't think that they addressed it with the planning board and it wasn't specifically mentioned. That doesn't mean that they approved it in my mind. So I don't think the drawing is correct that we're looking at because they did not draw it according to the correct zoning standards and then ask for a change in the setbacks. And to me, that's important when you're making these decisions. Second thing I'll say is, Ms. Clark, is that right? Yes. Okay. Makes a very good point about the effect on traffic. And I'd just like to comment on that. With regard to the connection there, if the idea is that people can connect the neighborhoods, you can do that with a greenway, and you can make it where a rescue vehicle can get through to the other one if it needs to. But there is no question, being a person who now works in a parking lot that is right in, right out, if there were any way I could go left, I would go left. I would break the rules, but I can't. So there's no doubt that the end of that parking lot will go through Strict Garden every chance they get to leave that neighborhood. That's just how human beings operate. So I agree wholeheartedly that, and on a personal level, when my neighborhood was developed in the 1960s, they specifically did not connect Haywood Forest and Town Forest so no one could cut through. And it drives me crazy. When my kids were little and we wanted to drive to the duck pond, we had to go all around our elbow to get to the duck pond, but no one cuts through those neighborhoods. And so I understand completely preserving that neighborhood, putting a greenway there that connects the two that could be used for emergency vehicles. I realize that calling it a greenway is probably not the right term because the slope is so steep and curvy. I'm not sure we can meet the greenway definition, but we can call it a walkway because there's some rules on greenways about like slope and things like that. But regardless of what we call it, it could be something that people can walk on and it can connect for emergency vehicles only and for no other motorized traffic. I do have one question, and I don't know if this is for Mr. Connett or if this is for Lou. But with regard to North Main, that is a DOT street. Like we couldn't widen that if we wanted to.
So it is a DOT street.
Why in the world is it a DOT street? Go ahead.
I am, Tom Wooten will shoot me for saying this. I am sure DOT would give you that street if you wanted it. But then you are going to be in the road business as it relates to widening and so which the city may ultimately be at some point.
So from where to where, when does it quit being the city's?
Nowhere on Main Street at all is it the city's.
So when you leave Hendersonville High School on North Main,
that's
all DOT.
Yeah, so I guess technically, that's right.
So,
no, but
but
it's all a DOT.
It's not a DOT street at all. I'm sorry, it's not a city
Right, so
street.
right there at high school where it takes off north, that's all DOT.
Yes,
So I think the city could also improve it and not take it over.
that's right. That's a good point.
DOT would allow you to go in and improve it for their benefit. You'd have to work with them to do that.
Well, the only reason I ask that is everybody in the world knows that street's got to be widened. And DOT is unbelievably negligent in my mind on how quickly they get these done. And I don't blame the people that work there because part of it's funding issues. I got that. But this is not like 25 or 191. This is North Main, right? This is not a street with a number on it, right? This is not, 25 goes off Asheville Highway. This is not that. It does seem to me that in the process of this, we have an opportunity, and an opportunity does not mean, I don't know what that word means in this context, but we all know that North Main is a travel problem. Everybody, even now. And it just seems like this is the perfect opportunity to figure out how we can improve that, including the city's input with it. And, I agree that we are creating much more traffic here with this project. And there's no way DOT, if we started today, it'd be 5 years before they touch this road, before it'd be drivable. So I don't know how that fits into all of this, but we are definitely on a road that I agree, when I drive there at night, is I'm paying attention the whole time, especially when you go by the turn to Yon Hill, that we're putting a lot more cars on that road that certainly it's not safe all the time to put those cars on there. And it seems like if we don't address the traffic aspect of this, then when the other piece of property sells and they come to us with a drawing that looks something like this, we're going to have a nightmare on that street. So I don't know what that means, but it seems to me that we are, in approving this as it is, we are taking ownership of a traffic problem ourselves, in the sense of we know there's a lot more traffic on a road that needs to be widened. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, may I comment on the connectivity issue? This council adopted a brand new subdivision ordinance that established the public policy of connectivity and put the rules in place to require that. The issue of connectivity in this context is a subdivision issue, not a zoning issue. That is not something that can be dealt with, I think, in this context. But I hear and I see heads nodding loud and clear that it's something that you may want to address, but we may have to do it in a different context as far as turning that into a greenway or not requiring the connectivity, because right now that is a requirement of your subdivision ordinance. And so it's an example of, that's a brand new ordinance, and now we're starting to see what that looks like in reality. And so it may be a policy that you want to revisit based on what I'm hearing, because if the subdivision ordinance remains as it is, this is going to be, every development is going to require this interconnectivity and create these same issues. So it's a more modern urban planning concept, and I'm not a planner, that Matt or Luke could talk to you better than I can. So I just want to point out that if that is council's wish to look at a way to turn that into a greenway as opposed to a connected street, we will have to look at another method to do that, and you can direct us to do that.
May I comment?
Sure.
Part D, though, it says where practicable and feasible. Does that not allow us to have some level of judgment as to whether or not we want to do that?
So that's a subdivision requirement, and we're in a zoning hearing. So when it comes time to do the plat review, the subdivision review, which we're not in the subdivision review right now, we're setting the zoning rules that the subdivision will have to meet when it comes up for subdivision review. And so...
So there's a plat here, or a map, and in approving conditional zoning, we're approving that map, correct?
You're approving a site plan.
A site plan, excuse me.
Site plan, right.
So...
And so coming in, they're demonstrating compliance with existing subdivision standards. But the way to vary subdivision standards would be either through a variance or through an amendment of the subdivision standards. We're dealing with zoning standards here.
Okay, so if we wanted them to change that, We can't change that tonight.
Correct.
So so we're left with, if we want to change, we have to vote this down and they come back.
You would need to amend the subdivision ordinance to address the requirement of connectivity, to allow some options, because right
Right.
now it's a mandatory requirement.
Right, so in other words, to do that, we'd have to have an ordinance change, we'd have to come back, propose the ordinance, approve the ordinance, and then we start looking at this then.
But what's the time between, like, the conditional zoning and when the subdivision plan review would happen?
It's two separate things.
It is, but what happens is it's a staff review instead of a planning board review for site plan approval when it's been approved through a conditional zoning.
Yeah, so technically, the preliminary plat can run concurrently with the application for CZD, but it's not in this one. So the preliminary plat would go back to the planning board for approval, and then the final plat is signed off by staff.
Okay.
So we wouldn't see it?
No.
You do not currently review
Subdivisions.
plats.
So in other words, if they went to planning board and the planning board on the subdivision approved that street and staff approved that drawing, we would have no say in that.
I'm sorry.
So
said something to me,
when
too,
the
so-
subdivision thing happens and it goes to planning board,
Right.
and planning board, let's just say they approve the same exact drawing I'm looking at right now,
Right.
and you guys approve it, then even though we've expressed an interest in putting a greenway there, we're out of luck. Is that correct?
So the subdivision ordinance guides the connectivity issue, which is what Angie's speaking to.
All right.
The connectivity drive is in that ordinance. To vary from the ordinance, basically you have to request a variance. So the developer could request a variance from that connectivity. That would go to the BOA, Board of Adjustment, because it's a zoning variance request. In that case, specifically a subdivision ordinance. The CZD is the approval, it's a legislative decision for approving basically the intensity of the development, because there could be lot line adjustments as they move towards their final plat. As long as the intensity of the development doesn't change, city staff are authorized then to approve the final plat.
That's right.
Final plat is what gives them the authority to begin selling lots.
And the intensity means the number of units.
Exactly.
Correct.
In this case, for residential, it means the number of units.
Yeah.
Can you remind us of the importance or the reasoning behind the decision to require connectivity?
Yes. So I recognize that this is a very difficult topic as it relates to connectivity, and one that development in North America, America in particular, over time, has both hewed to and then away from. So some of our most historic, older neighborhoods would score the highest in terms of connectivity. They have multiple connections. Connectivity is an important part of the character of the neighborhoods. And in our mountain town, you see a lot of really wild streets connecting those neighborhoods. And oftentimes, it's that connectivity which develops the walkability, connectivity to commercial areas, et cetera, et cetera. As we've moved into the 50s, 60s, 70s, as cars became more prominent, development patterns changed. And oftentimes, there were subdivisions that were the result of a vehicle being entered and traveled to a particular subdivision, and the cul-de-sac became king. Florida is a great example of the cul-de-sac as king. And Florida arterials are a good example of what happens when you do cul-de-sac neighborhoods and you do not promote connectivity. So all that traffic then is coming onto one arterial road, and that's part of what's now kind of coming about in planning is a discussion about maybe promoting and encouraging connectivity is in fact something that is going to promote the neighborhood character that many of us perhaps like, and which does provide that sort of unique neighborhood character. So this is a single-family subdivision. It is 1- and 2-story homes, and so
looking back to some of those older patterns of development, I think that's where our subdivision ordinance was moving towards, sort of encouraging that connectivity. I will note there are some benefits, not just to emergency services, and I'm not going to put Tom on the spot, but garbage trucks love to be able to move through neighborhoods. There are other benefits to the connectivity. Could be some bikes in this neighborhood too. So I think that is part of what the subdivision ordinance is trying to promote. I recognize that, those patterns of development have changed over time and that people have embraced sort of that separate neighborhood pattern. And if that's something that the community wants to move towards, we just need to work towards developing that in our subdivision ordinance. I will admit that we weren't specifically involved in the development of the subdivision ordinance, but there is an extensive section on connectivity and scoring subdivisions on connectivity. So, we wanted, to accurately reflect what that ordinance had in it.
Do you know of any situations in existing neighborhoods that do not have great accessibility or connectivity, where we have had traffic problems, accidents, or inability to get emergency vehicles to?
So I don't know that I can speak to that specifically. I don't know if our emergency services folks would have any comments on that. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I'm not specifically familiar with neighborhoods that we have had difficulty accessing and providing services to because of connectivity issues.
Okay.
So I definitely understand where we're coming from as far as a connectivity, and you don't want to push everybody to the same arterial roads. But in this particular instance, Strict Garden Lane is a dead end, right? So you're still pushing people onto North Main, which is where the other two exits are going anyways. So I know we need to go to the subdivision ordinance and change it, but I think this is a very particular issue where it does not make sense to connect the two neighborhoods, except with like a Greenway or something like that. But it sounds to me like the only way we could really make sure that that happens and this does not get turned into a paved road would be to deny this application, change the ordinance, and then have them come back, because otherwise they would have to apply for a variance, right?
They would have to apply for a variance to,
Yeah.
we can't, the staff can't make an administrative decision to not allow, not.
And we can't make it a condition to apply for a variance, because then we're telling them what to do.
Yeah, you can't promise a legislative decision.
Right.
We don't have to totally deny it though, do we? Or could we just recess this public hearing?
So the public hearing is closed. You don't have to vote
Right.
tonight. So maybe a prudent thing to do would be not to vote tonight and let staff study it for the next 30 days. And so when you come back in November, maybe we might have some other ideas or suggestions as far as how to get there. Because, I mean, this is Johnny on the spot for me, right? And so there may be some other options that I haven't thought about or studied that I might could come back and we could put our heads together and come back with some other suggestions or recommendations. I mean, so that would be one option that you would have. It's just not to vote tonight.
I guess I have a question procedurally, and that is, up to now, I guess my perception of conditional zoning is you do what we say you do, basically, in conditional zoning. But apparently that is not the correct interpretation of conditional zoning. So if we say you build a greenway as part of the conditional zoning, in this context, if we can't do that.
So I won't say you could never say to make part of this development a greenway. I won't say you could never do that. So the road is on another piece of property. It's not even on their own property first.
Right.
Okay, so I'm just, to be totally honest, not quite sure of the impact of the fact that we're requiring them to go on somebody else's property. But I will tell you that that dedication of that 45-foot right-of-way is a dedication to the city. So the city could go in and open it right now, tomorrow, right? Because that's been dedicated to the public, and that's how the public accepts it, is through the city. So, I guess I would say, without doing research, requiring them to open it on our behalf would be also us accepting it. So probably we can do that. But all I'm saying is you can't through a zoning process vary a subdivision requirement. They're two totally independent ordinances. That's all I'm saying. So, that the connectivity piece, whether they have to build it or not, will be a subdivision issue. That's
Unless we change the ordinance.
Unless you change the ordinance, right. Right, and that's the best advice I can give you tonight.
Yes.
So for me, I feel like we've gone down a connectivity rabbit hole. That's not my only concern with this development. I was just trying to understand what Angie was saying. I do think that there is a huge concern with the traffic on this road just because the Clear Creek development is not done. We have not seen what that's going to do to these roads, and now we're going to be adding more homes. And I know they're not built tomorrow, but I think Ms. Clark had a great point in that we need to start looking at how all of these pieces and parts work together and how, yes, Clear Creek was good when we did it, and this is how many cars might come in, but now we're adding another one on top of it before we even see what that impact's going to be. And so I think Jerry was right in that if we approve this, then we're opening ourselves up to take responsibility for a traffic nightmare.
No, I'm sorry. It's time for council to discuss.
I'm an engineering geologist with 35 years.
I'm sorry, it's time for council to discuss.
I can't think that you would ever even consider approving this.
Would you?
Without seeing.
You've got to stop. You have to
Or
stop.
you're going to be
removed from the meeting. You got to stop.
So it seems like we're not ready to make a decision tonight after this one.
I will make a comment, if
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me. I did meet with Chuck McGrady about this entire road about 4 or 3 months ago, and to discuss the DOT road project. And so I know that the city is actively having these discussions, and thank you guys for your thoughtful comments as well, because we do hear you and we understand the safety concerns and we are trying our best. And so I do think that road project is on the radar, and hopefully we can in some way get it moved forward. I think that's kind of I know that the planning group from the city has been discussing that as well. So that's just the only other comment I had about the road.
Thank you.
I'd like to throw one other thing, just a question in. I'm a short timer, so I'm not going to be around doing a lot of this. But I do want to clarify something. The city council doesn't go out and survey roads, especially state roads, and say what the traffic count can be, what the road can take. We accept DOT studies, right? So are we going to stop accepting what DOT tells us when there is a traffic study triggered by these different things? Or are you going to accept them, maybe ask them to make sure they're doing the counts at peak times? I don't know where they actually go out and do them and when they do them and how far out they are. But if you're going to start deciding which projects are just going to put it over the top, how are you going to back that up? I mean, where are you going to gather that real information on? And it's hard because, all of us know that when you add a big project, there are some more cars going to be involved in it. But how do you make those decisions, and how do you make them accurately other than just emotionally when we're trying to pull out and having a hard time? Because I've been there, done that. I understand it. But this council in the future is going to have those challenges. Going back to, you said there was, the density was not correct, that it was being figured wrong. But I mean, it's on the whole acreage. And they were saving 70% of it open space, which You know, that's the little density bonus you get if you're keeping some green space in there. So they're not misleading it. They're just saying how the whole project's being figured. And the only way we're ever going to get to some houses that might be affordable, Ken, is if there's density, or if it goes up, which is density. And we all know it's difficult when you have these big neighborhoods coming in beside your neighborhood, but we still have to be fair in it and find that, you know, compromise, that happy place that people can still get something here affordable. And that's all we're trying to do, is trying to find that place where people can come here and buy a home or rent a place and it be manageable. And none of us want to destroy a neighborhood or put people at risk. And I know none of these folks would ever do that. So please try to understand we're in a tough place. They are in a tough place. And we love to have these discussions. That's why you have the neighborhood compatibility meetings where these are going. Go to them. Participate in them. I hate got you moments where it's already come through, people have spent the money to have these plans, and then people pour in, and rather than when they were first planning these things, not being there and then coming in late. Everybody up here wants to hear it. Nobody wants to deny anyone their opportunity to speak. So try to understand where they are. I'll be here 2 more months and then I'm free. But they're going to still be taking shells, and I just really respect their ability and the staff's. Nobody's trying to conspire here.
It's quite a metaphor.
So that's my soapbox for the night. But I appreciate your comments, and they are welcome.
Jeff, I'd like to respond, and in talking to people about this, I've explained if we're going to have workforce housing, it's going to be this dense.
Yep.
I agree with you 100%. My issues were not with the number of homes. It's with.
Well, I understand, but I just want to
I'm
cover
just
the
saying,
whole
I
thing.
agree with you. If we're going to have workforce housing, it's going to look like this. This is what it has to look like. So I have no problem with the density there, but I've already expressed my issues, other things. So I just wanted to clarify. I agree that this is what workforce housing is going to look like.
Sure. But I don't know how you guys are ever going to figure out which one puts it over the tipping point for a road. And maybe the whole balance system of how DOT figures out the counts and when they're doing them has to be a little more updated. And was the Big Clear Creek included in the counts? All those things there, but boy, when city council starts doing the road counts and deciding, you're in trouble.
I think ultimately, we had this conversation today. I think ultimately, either through consultants or through your staff, you'll have to hire a traffic engineer that will review every project as a whole as it relates to, and it will cost the city some money. You will have to do traffic counts, or the developer will have to do the traffic counts, and that becomes a policy decision of the city council. And we'll have to have that traffic engineer who can review the traffic impact analysis. And I've said this for a couple of years now, that at some point the city will get into the road business again that we have not been in since probably the 1930s or 1940s. So
I think
it's just an opportunity for this city to continue to grow up. And whether we want to or not, it's coming. So I'll get off my soapbox now. That's what's coming down the road.
There it
No
is.
pun intended.
There it is.
And just for the people listening to, the DOT projects, we work on these projects called spot projects, and they're identified 20, 15 years in advance. And so a massive DOT priority was creating something called a Balfour Parkway. That was originally created, 15 years ago in their initial spot. And because the DOT, and through traffic studies and growth studies and population density, determined that we needed better connectivity in Henderson County to be able to route people off of some of these roads that are too busy. And then that huge, huge project was massively shut down by the people that live here, and because they didn't want the project to happen. But then we take the project down, and then we still are now left with no road connectivity. So there's got to be a happy medium of when we can say, we need these projects, because, you know, in the DOT world, by the time you realize that you need a project, you're like 20 years too late on getting it. And so, you know, I just hope that people understand the need for our roads and infrastructure and connectivity, and are thoughtful when these projects come up. That's all.
Well, is anyone ready to vote tonight?
No.
Okay. So we will postpone further discussion and vote on this project, giving staff and city attorney time to look at what the options are.
So, excuse me, Mayor,
Yes.
just make sure we have specific directions. Madam Attorney, do you have specific directions of what we're going to look at for our planning staff and for the developer?
I do. So what I will do is look through our zoning ordinance to see if there's some other provision that might allow us to do what you're wanting to limit that, you know, or to see what other option there may be, or to see a way that you can guarantee that when it gets to the subdivision process, I mean, all I'm going to be looking at is the connectivity issue for that connection in the straight garden lane.
Right, I think that's the only,
That's
that's
the
the
issue.
issue we're concerned with at this point.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, can we please postpone it to the next regular meeting? Not mid-meeting, but the regular
The
meeting?
regular meeting.
Yeah, in November, okay. I guess that's what this called, regular meeting.
Okay. Any objection to postponing it to our next regular meeting? All staff works on this. Okay, thank you. All right, and thank you all for your comments. Okay, have a request for a 5 to 7 minute break.
Amen.
We'll get that. We'll get to vote on that.
Hey, Jerry, I have a question for
Yeah.
you, because you're the legal person here. So
Okay. Our second public hearing, a conditional rezoning, Waterleaf at Flat Rock.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. The city is in receipt of a conditional rezoning application from Grey Cliff Capital Development LLC. There we go. So the PIN for the site is 9588-118740. If you read through the planning board minutes for this project, you'll notice that it previously said a portion of and had another PIN. So between planning board and city council, this parcel that the rezoning is occurring on actually was subdivided from a larger 32-acre parcel. So that's why you see an actual PIN number now instead of a portion of. So that's, wanted to clarify that. And this property is actually annexed by you all on September 2nd, 2021. So it is already in the city limits as a satellite annexation. It is currently zoned Henderson County Office Institutional. It is proposed to be zoned PRD CZD, Planned Residential Development. The total acreage for the site's 15.5 acres. The developer is proposing multifamily and 263 units. A neighbor compatibility was required for this project, like all other conditional zoning districts. Topics discussed revolved around density, height, traffic concerns, impact on the fire service, and also parking. You'll see our current zoning. It's actually, it's sporadic. You'll see that it's currently has a lot of Henderson County zoning and some spots of Hendersonville zoning. So that shows our satellite annexations. The parcels to the north are zoned Henderson County Office Institutional and City of Hendersonville Planned Residential Development. That is the Landings of Flat Rock project that came before y'all in 2020. The parcels to the west are zoned Henderson County Regional Commercial and Residential 1 and contain various uses including an RV park. Parcels located to the south are zoned Henderson County Regional Commercial, City of Hendersonville C3 Highway Business, City of Hendersonville Planned Commercial Development, and contain various commercial uses such as a Holiday Inn Express, a Bojangles, State Employees Credit Union, and also a high-intensity mobile home park. The parcels located to the east are zoned Henderson County Office Institutional and Regional Commercial and contain I-26 and vacant land and also some commercial uses. As you'll see on the right, that's the proposed zoning map. If this was rezoned, it would match the Landings of Flat Rock parcel as a PRD under the city's zoning. The City of Hendersonville future land use map that's tied to our comprehensive plan is on the left. Henderson County's future land use map is, of course, tied to their comp plan. It's on the right. So our comprehensive plan designates this property as Regional Activity Center. Parcels located to the north, east, and south are designated as Regional Activity Center as well. Parcels to the west are designated as Business Center and Natural Resource and Agricultural. Natural Resource and Agricultural can be found in basically the floodplain area. So that kind of what that shows is the floodplain in the area. And it's important to note that when you rezone a property, there's a consistency with the comp plan that's involved. So I know I'm showing both comprehensive plans. You would basically only be focusing on the city's comprehensive plan now that it's in the city's jurisdiction. I just wanted to throw the Henderson County future land use map up there just as reference as what they've got it designated as, which is industrial. So the future land use map designation, like I mentioned, is Regional Activity Center. The idea of Regional Activity Center is to meet the large-scale retail needs of Hendersonville residents while encouraging mixed use and walkable design through redevelopment and infill projects. As you'll also see, secondary recommended land use for this designation is multifamily residential. The area is also designated as a priority growth area, and those areas are areas that are considered a high priority for expansion of the ETJ, annexation, and extension of infrastructure and services. So this property has already been annexed, and they are planning to extend the city's services to support this development. And the comprehensive plan also calls out this property as a development opportunity. So here's some pieces from our comprehensive plan that is showing some compliance with the plan itself. So the first picture shows preservation of mature trees. As you'll see, they are losing mature trees along the tree line. Basically, this tree line here is what is shown right here on the screen. Those black dots are trees that are proposed to be lost. The trees, however, they are proposing to save a good amount of trees down here on the southern border, which will act as a buffer between those parcels and this new development. And also, Population and Housing, Chapter 2, encourage a wide range of housing types and price points in order to meet the diverse and evolving needs of current and future residents, match the housing supply with local workforce, and promote diverse neighborhoods. So you will see that multifamily is right here. It only makes up around 4% of the overall land uses in the city. So it is underused land use. So this is meeting a diverse housing need that is in our city. Most of the pictures on the top are of the existing tree line. They're taken from various points. The top three, are views from the South Allen side of the development, basically from the open field. The tree line kind of cuts the two parcels in half. The picture on the bottom left is from the backside. That's actually taken from the Holiday Inn, so the backside of the property that will be developed. The bottom two pictures, the bottom left picture shows the sidewalk that this project will be tying into to extend the pedestrian infrastructure, and the bottom right picture shows where this development will be accessing their second access, and I'll get into that later in more detail. So this is the tree survey that was conducted for this project. The total number of trees that are over 12 inches in diameter at breast height was 244. The proposed trees to be preserved is 117. Proposed trees to be removed is 127. The engineer for the project said that may fluctuate by a few trees. If they can save more trees, they will. But that also means they could also possibly take out more trees than what is slated to be removed. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the mature trees along the southern border are going to remain intact and serve as a mature buffer for the commercial businesses and that residential development to the south. So there were changes to the site plan between Planning Board and City Council. You can see it was the main change, the only change really, was that the footprints of the buildings changed by 2,117 square feet per building. So the building that is shown on the site plan is the building that was reviewed by by Planning Board. The red outline is what is being proposed now, and that will be the plan that I go into here in a second. As you'll see, they basically just slid over some, and then the footprint itself grew by 2,117 square feet in each of the buildings. The reason for the increase was to create extra sidewalk and stairway access points for the developments, just more ways to access the buildings, because as you'll see on the plan itself, these are units down here, which kind of shut off any access to this outside. It basically just dead ends at the end of a hallway, and there's less access points. So you'll see in the next plan that these actually are connected to sidewalks now. And although the square footage of the buildings increased, the total site plan unit count actually decreased by 1. So Planning Board saw a development of 264 units. The developer is now proposing 263 units. So the density actually went down. Let me get into this. So for this project, vehicular use landscaping will be required. A stormwater detention system will also be required because they're disturbing more than an acre of land. The zoning ordinance requires that in PRD, a minimum of 1.5 spaces per residential unit containing 1 or 2 bedrooms, and a minimum of 2 spaces per residential unit containing 3 or more bedrooms. So they have 214 1 or 2 bedrooms, which equate to 321 required spaces. They have 53 plus bedrooms, which require 100 spaces. In total, they are required to have 421 spaces, and the developer's proposing 444 spaces, so they're exceeding the minimum requirements. Sidewalks will also be provided along the South Allen frontage and also off the rear of the property back here on this second access, which I'll get into in just a second. So for this building, they have a project, basically PRD sets a height limit of 35 feet. You're allowed to go over that 35 feet, but if you do, you trigger this height limitation exemption, which City Council has to grant. And there's 3 criteria that you have to meet to even basically apply for that exemption. The main thing is that such building will not block the sunlight from adjacent properties between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. from the months of October 1st and May 1st. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see 2 sun studies, and you'll see this black kind of shadowy place, and that's exactly what it is. It's a shadow. So that's showing how the sun will hit this development and how the shadows will carry during that time period. So the idea for that is that we don't want tall buildings to cast a shadow on adjacent properties and basically put them in darkness. And as you'll see, this development does not cast its shadow onto another development. And then the second piece is about fire safety, which the fire department's a part of our development review committee, and they've reviewed this. And also the side and rear yards of the structures have to increase. So they're basically meeting all 3 of these criteria as laid out in the ordinance for a height limitation exemption. There's also a density bonus. In PRD, when you go over 10 units an acre, you have to ask for a density bonus. PRD also lays out that you, between basically 18 or 10 and 18 is what you're allowed to do a density bonus for. No project's allowed to go over 18, so 18 is kind of the hard cutoff on everything. But in order to get a density bonus, much like the height exemption, there's particular items that are laid out that you have to meet and you have to show compliance. A, B, and C are all traffic related. The project did do a traffic impact analysis and shows that they're meeting A, B, and C for this requirements. D is kind of the hang up. That's kind of where the rubber meets the road on giving a density bonus. And the development is proposed to be located within reasonable walking distance of places of employment and or shopping facilities and shall provide pedestrian amenities in order to foster that pedestrian access. So the developer is proposing on their second back access to construct this road, which will have sidewalks that will tie in to the existing sidewalks that were approved along Upward Crossing Boulevard, or Upward Crossing Drive, I believe it is. These sidewalks are existing, so the sidewalks from this development will tie into these existing sidewalks, which would foster pedestrians to walk from this development to Upward Road, to State Employees Credit Union, places to eat, that kind of thing. And then the last one is related to open space, which this development meets.
So that sidewalk goes to Bojangles, right?
Yes. That's the most important place to go, yeah. So that basically shows on the map where they connect in at. So I mentioned a TIA. So what triggered a TIA? Why did this project have to do it? So the city has thresholds for requiring a TIA. The first threshold is 1,000 daily trips. And as you can see, they're proposed to have 1,438 trips. So that on itself triggered the TIA. We also have another trigger for peak hour trips, and that's 100 trips. So this one was at 112. So it triggered that as well. So this kind of shows there was 3 intersections studied, which was Upward Crossing Drive and Upward Road, South Allen and Upward Road, and the site development driveway itself in South Allen. Those intersections were agreed on by the developer, the city, and the NCDOT. There was mitigation recommended for the development. As you'll see, South Allen Road and Upward Road and Upward Crossing Drive, there was no mitigation that was needed to foster this development. On number 3, South Allen Road at Site Driveway did have 2 recommended mitigations, which the developer already has in their plan, so they're already meeting the mitigations that were shown and suggested by the TIA. As you know, a deceleration lane was not recommended as a mitigation factor as part of the TIA itself. However, general statutes give NCDOT more power to request a deceleration lane if you meet certain criteria. And one of those certain criteria is if the road is to exceed 4,000 daily trips. And from a 2016 data collection, South Allen Road had approximately 3,400 trips a day. This project altogether was proposed to add 1,438 trips. Cut that in half because it was suggested that half of the trips would go to South Allen, the other half would go to Upward Crossing. So with that being said, this development would, in theory, total 4,119 trips per day, which would allow DOT to kind of request this deceleration lane. I spoke with NCDOT and they advised that although they would not require that a deceleration lane be installed since it was not included in the TIA as a mitigation. However, if the developer decided to put one in, they'd be in support of that, but they would not require it. So the staff analysis, the proposed site plan was reviewed by the Development Review Committee. The proposed site plan is generally compliant with the zoning code, and the proposed use/site plan are supported by the comprehensive plan. So we're going to go through the recommended conditions. This was a recommended condition from staff. The developer shall build the second access to city street standards and allow it to be used for resident ingress and egress. So the second access that I showed earlier, this one right on the screen, it's required no matter what for fire code. However, if it's just for fire code purposes only, they would not have to build it to city street standards. They could be gravel with a gate. We thought that in order to alleviate traffic and have a better flow of traffic, that back access that's already going to be required should be built to city street standards and used as an ingress and egress for the residents that they could use. Planning board also thought the same thing, and that was one of their recommended conditions that you'll see on the next slide. Tree board also reviewed this project, and they made the following recommendation of a condition, which is to require the developer to plant trees at 2.5-inch caliper rather than the 1.5-inch caliper size that's required by the ordinance, to preserve as many trees as possible on the site, and to plant the number of trees as specified by the city's zoning ordinance. So the planning board recommended some of that condition, much like the Providence Walk project. Planning board took out the caliper requirement, but they recommended the rest of the condition, which I can show. So they did still recommend to preserve as many trees as possible on the site and to plant the number of trees as specified by the city's zoning ordinance. Planning board also had 2 standalone conditions that they discussed during the meeting. The third one's the developer work with the city staff to comply with the 5 outdoor lighting basics from the International Dark Sky Association. And the last one's to work with NCDOT and city staff for a deceleration lane. And I'm open to any questions you all may have.
Questions?
What's the difference between 2.5-inch caliper and 1.5, other than there's an inch?
Damn. I was going to say 1 inch.
I mean, it must be an older tree, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
How much older is the tree? I'm not an arborist, I'm just wondering.
I don't have an answer about the age, but it is, like you said, bigger at the trunk.
Right.
About chest height, and it will also be taller.
Right. I'd probably have a bigger ball.
Probably.
I think the big thing is it's got a bigger price tag.
Yeah. And then
What's
also-
how big a difference?
What?
How big a difference? I mean.
No, I'm just wondering.
But that's what I'm
The
asking,
second one-
yeah.
The second one is.
How,
much more does it cost to get 2.5-inch trees versus 1.5-inch trees? I'm sorry.
And I was just going to say, I think this is a bigger discussion. Ultimately, you'll need to decide on the recommendation, but I think it's a bigger discussion because your zoning ordinance says 1.5 inch, and then the tree board is going above and beyond this. And in one case, they recommended 2 inches, and in this case, they inched 2.5. So
I agree.
We probably in the future need to have a conversation with an arborist so that the city council is clear, and you can put what you want with a recommendation from the tree board in the ordinance so that it's consistent and the developer knows what they need to plan for.
And I also wanted to mention too, the motion has all of the conditions in total. So it also has the full tree board recommendation as well. So all proposed conditions are in your motions.
Oh, goodness.
It looks like it's about a 2-year difference.
Okay. Any other questions?
I mean, based on this weird thing I found.
Okay. Does the developer want to make a presentation?
Hi, good evening. Seth Peterson with Grey Cliff Capital, based in Greenville, South Carolina. So just down the mountain from you. Appreciate you letting us come here tonight to speak with you. Tower did an amazing job going through the project, and I just kind of want to touch high level, really why we're proposing this, what's the goal, and oh, thanks. Drove the whole way up here trying to think what's the goal, what's the why here, and then when I sat down, I don't know if the city marketing is working on me or what, but live here, work here. It's the number one goal here. There are 150 plus jobs coming to the industrial park, and we are trying to help meet some of the lack of rental housing for the jobs that are coming. So building this road connection at our cost, private road, going to the light, on upward crossing, directly connecting. That's what we're trying to do here. Live here, work here, community college. There's so many employers. We're trying to bring housing, rental housing, to them. And so a couple other just really small points before we kind of brought this proposal out. One of the number one things we did was sat down and spoke with local folks, met with staff, try to just come up with what do we want to propose here before it actually hit a docket, hit a packet. And one of the big things that we were kind of tasked with was creation of sidewalks, not just in the project, but sidewalks to upward crossing and then over to Commercial Boulevard. Once you kind of can hit that pedestrian access at the light, then you can get over. And so tying into that, and also green space. We redesigned our site plan to create kind of these groves. You see these buildings kind of facing each other. The goal there was save trees, create green space, kind of have those groves in between, and then tie it in through sidewalks. So that was some input we got, and that's what we listened to, and that's really what we proposed here tonight. So appreciate tonight, and I'll hand it off. Yeah, thanks.
Good evening, I'm Warren Sugg with Civil Design Concepts, and pleasure to be with you all tonight. Before I get into my little presentation, I wanted to commend staff and you guys on doing the outreach. All of us in the community are really having a hard time getting employees, keeping employees, so a little sidebar, but great job, and I really commend you all on that. A little bit about the project, and I'm thankful that I'm here and able to present. Also, just really want to thank staff. They've been great throughout the whole process, being able to sit down with us, talk through Zoom, talk through any number of different ways to make sure we got this thing molded in a way that not only worked for us from a development standpoint, but also from the city and city codes. So thank you so much to staff for that. As mentioned, we are 263 units in 15 buildings on 15.5 acres, roughly disturbing about 9.7 acres. We're still at a conceptual level, but less than 10 acres of disturbance. As mentioned, we do have about 444 parking spaces, which is just above the required amount, and I think is an adequate amount for what's being proposed here. As mentioned, we do have a traffic impact study that was completed. It's been going on for a number of months now. We've had NCDOT involvement from the very early on to help scope this out, as well as with city staff and city's traffic consultant, the outside source. With that, we certainly understood and put in the 2 access points. That's not only a requirement, but it's a good thing for TIA and getting traffic going in lots of different directions. It helps with emergency access, and frankly, it just helps us get to Bojangles quicker, so we're excited about that as well. We do have some great interior circulation, and from a fire access, from a traffic standpoint, one of the things that we were really tasked with was having these inner grove areas, but also having some circulation of traffic, and that helps if you have an emergency and you've got a vehicle that's in the middle of one of these, you can still circle around and get in and out without too much trouble. So I think that's a great design point. A couple other things I'll touch on, and I know you guys have been here a really long time, so I'll be short and sweet. We do have sewer that's right off of South Allen that we want to make connection to, and that's been thought through, and I think it's adequate for what we need. Likewise, we have water along South Allen, so utility-wise, we're in good shape. This site has a natural sort of high spot in the middle, and then it sort of breaks off to the east and west. You can't see it on this screen, but on the plans, there's 2 ponds that we've gone on and accounted for on the west side and on the east side. That's kind of a rule that you don't want to break up drainage areas. You really want to keep stormwater going the way that it's naturally wanting to go, even though we are going to be grading some here. We did mention a little bit on some of the trees. I will hit that in addition to the 117 that we're retaining, we're planting another 26 in one of the groups that we have to plant, and another 40 in another group, vehicular use area, building area. So that's 183 trees that are being planted, and another 252 shrubs are being planted. One of the things that came out of the tree commission or tree board was that we couldn't count the trees that we're preserving. Just kind of agreed that we're preserving as many as we can, but we won't count those towards the credits. Ballpark figure, we've got over 200 tree credits that we're not even bringing to the table as part of the discussion. So we feel really good about what we're doing here. At that, I will be quiet and answer any questions you have of me.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
What's the difference between 1.5 and 2.5?
Money.
I mean, can you
inch
hear?
at breast height. I don't know the exact dollars, but I heard somebody say double, and that's probably a pretty accurate description. I think it all comes down to which tree you're talking about, but there is a significant increase in value. I will say that we've had some other projects where we've gone smaller in size of tree, and depending on the condition of everything that's around it, they've actually done better. Because if they're a little smaller, they get a little stressed early on, they actually perform better at like year 5, year 7. I'm not a tree expert, but I know that has happened in a couple projects we've done, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
What percentage will be workforce?
Percentage workforce. I don't know that I can speak to that.
It's more, when you say workforce housing, it's very wide variety. I think when we say workforce, we're saying kind of right down the middle of the plate rent for a new product.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sure. So it's so workforce housing, affordable housing. There's a lot of definitions there. So this is not affordable housing. That's kind of more your bond program, LIHTC program. Workforce housing does also have a wide variety. So what we mean by that is that the rents themselves will kind of be down the middle of the plate for a Class A product. It's not going to be a Taj Mahal rate, but it's not going to be a lower down the line rent. So most of our tenants and residents are, you know, folks that work in manufacturing, folks that work in, you know, we have a lot of teachers. That's kind of when we say workforce. So, you know, if we're talking rental rates, it's kind of a little all over the place from market to market, but it's in that kind of $900 to $1,600 rent, depending on 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. Do you have an elevator unit? Do you have a nice? There's a wide variety there, but it's I don't know if that answered it or not. But.
Can I follow up?
Mhm.
So the picture of those places you have right there in front of us that you've built, you have teachers that are renting there.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've built all of these projects.
No, I know you did.
I didn't go on Google and copy and paste.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, you're saying there, in those places, there are teachers that can rent and live in those places.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Okay, Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in place with general statute?
Yes.
Open this public hearing. Would anyone like to speak regarding this conditional zoning? Anyone like to speak? Yes, sir. If you would come and give your name and address for the clerk's record, please.
Hi, my name is June Miller, and I live 17 Eagle Ridge Lane, Flat Rock. And I'm here because South Allen is a really pretty road, and that parcel is a really pretty parcel. And for a smaller development, like even Eagle Point, it would be ideal. But I think the reason that you're dealing with 2 buildings with 4 stories and elevators, to me, it speaks that that's not conducive to a smaller leveled building. And it's not conducive to that piece of property, because if you have to go 4 high, which, if you'll bear with me a minute, Valentine Apartments, Park Residence, Charleston, Cedar Trace, Oak Haven, Delwood Apartments, Chadwick Apartments, all 2 of them are 3 high, the rest are 2 high. So to go 4 high, the only thing equating to that around there is the Marriott. And I guess the Universal at Lakewood, the 200-unit apartment complex, is that still approved?
Yes.
It's approved.
Yes.
So that'll be going in next year?
They've already started construction.
Okay, so when you say we're becoming a community of apartments, it's sad because people look a long time for where they're going to live. And like that video, everything looks beautiful on there. And, you know, people don't see the whole vision of the traffic that's here. I mean, they don't see you have to make an appointment with a doctor 3 months ahead of time, you know, because that's not what mountain living really is. And if you're planning for the landings at Flat Rock to be on that road, that's a 3-story building, I guess, and it's 98 beds and another 58 or something in the other part of it. You have 2,300 students at that college that use that road. And if the survey was done in July, it's not going to show the amount of cars that go down that road because the college isn't full then. They're just building a whole new wing on that college, which means more traffic. I deal with it every day, 3 in the morning. And plus the career center, another 200 people there. You got the rehab center and the hospice, another 150 cars. And that road is used for the connection to Four Seasons, which, unless you want to go all the way around through town, you use that every day to get to Airport, to Tracy Grove, to Four Seasons. So to put another, 444 spots, but if each family in there had 2 cars, that's, you know, I don't know, that's I don't think that's adequate, and I don't think half of those people are going to go out the back. They're going to come out where they're going to go either to Four Seasons or they're going to go to downtown. Yeah, they can use 26, but I mean, there's so many other parcels of land out there. Plus, this Fletcher, this Ardent, there's a lot of property out there. To put it on this road, it's just, I don't know. It's just not a good fit, I don't think. And the closest that I could find to 4-story apartment buildings was on Hendersonville Road, Weirbridge Village, which has traffic light exits for it. So these people are going to come out to an already overly traveled road. So, and I don't know, as far as the traffic review, the Kimley Horn review that they had, the only difference I can see from July to September is that the date of the letter, I mean, they made it 100, maybe 100, they added to the 1,438 accesses from there. They gave it another 100 accesses. Well, who sits there and counts these cars? I mean, what's the process used to know how many cars are on that road if you're not going to use tire trackers, tubes, so that you actually get a proper count on how many cars are on that road? It's impossible. And they're talking about going ahead to 224. They don't know what's going to happen by 224. You've already approved, well, you probably haven't approved it, the landings. I don't think you have. But if you approve that, I mean, how can you foresee how much more traffic is going to go on that road? I mean, this parcel is more for a community of, like Eagle Point even, the smaller communities where you got some space, not squashed in there where you have to build all the way up. To me, I don't know how they determine, how that survey determined how many cars will be on that road. So I think it should probably be at the builder's expense to put the tire trackers down there so that you could get a true picture of what happens on that road. And so maybe I just don't think it's conducive to the area, and there's plenty more other places that it can be built rather than that one road. That's a lot of traffic from that college that goes down there. And maybe somebody can explain how they actually did this survey from their outside commission. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone want to explain how DOT does their studies?
You want us to answer each question as they come up? So we have our TIA consultant online, and I can talk in general terms about how those counts are done, and they can talk in very specific counts. So specifically, there are videos, there's tube counts, and then there's people that literally sit there with a board and count. So they can probably give us that exact which one happened at which intersection. I think I heard about traffic counts. And then she mentioned Kimberly Horn, who's actually the city's consultant. It's not our consultant. And then I can speak to some of the other things if you'd like for me to, or if we can stick to TIA.
I think the main concern was the traffic.
Okay. Can we have, is it Jeff and, okay, Matt. Can we have Matt Peach brought on?
Matt Teach, don't see him as a participant. Peach. Jeff Weller?
Yes.
So, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Jeff Weller. I'm the engineer of record for this study. I'll give a quick overview of counts and how they were done, and then if there's any following questions, I'm glad to answer those. Counts were taken, turning movement counts were taken at the study area intersections in May, back when school was in session per DOT guidelines. The annual average daily traffic, which is the 3,400 vehicles per day, comes from, it's a product of DOT. So they have the tube counts that are out there when you ride over the rubber tubes. Those are DOT counts, and they go through, and depending on when they collect those, they have seasonal adjustment factors and for the month and for the day of the week, and various factors. So they go through and average those out. So generally those are not collected during the summer months, but they are generally done during the school year, so they do accurately reflect public school traffic in those numbers. If there's any other questions, I'm glad to answer. It seemed like most of the questions were focused on the data collection itself, which did happen when school was in session.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this conditional rezoning? Yes. Again, give your name and address, please.
Lynn Williams, 309 Chadwick Avenue. Thanks for your time. So the reason I speak at these is because I literally have trouble sleeping at night thinking about all these little blocks of land that are getting destroyed in our county and in our city, and it's very stressful to think about this, and I want to come and help us preserve our natural landscape and the reason why we're here with clean air, clean water, and why people want to come here. So my concern, yes, 263 units is a lot of density. They're asking for an exemption. Instead of the 10 units per acre, they're asking for 16.96. I'm not hearing that it's affordable housing, so I'm not clear why we would go for this density increase when it's not even meeting our basic needs for affordable housing. They say they're going to save a large amount of trees and replant them, but they are going to take down 127 mature trees. That's over half of the mature trees on this lot. It's painful just to even think about. You're talking about we're a bee city, we're a bird sanctuary, we're a tree city. How are you showing that? How are you showing that in allowing for half of the mature trees to get cut down? Planting a 2-inch caliber tree does not compare in any way to a tree that's been growing for 100 years here and providing resources to the natural wildlife and the birds and us as humans for clean air and water. One thing that's also really personal about this location is it's right across the street from the Elizabeth House, and I've spent a lot of time there helping my loved ones pass. And it's a very challenging time, and it's a beautiful road, as the speaker before me spoke about. They have a memorial garden right there on the road. When you're actually crying as your family member's dying, you're sitting in the garden crying and getting healed there. We're talking about increasing traffic exponentially between these two developments. It's going to take away from the quality of the dying process of all our residents that go there to die and their families that grieve that process. Let's see. So yes, I'm asking for more of the canopy to be protected. I would love to see more creative design in the way that the apartments are built around the trees. I see that you're preserving them along the border, but I really do think that perhaps you could work more creatively to protect our land. I see there's 3 acres of open space, but does this actually meet the 60% open space requirement? When you look at the map, you can see that these trees and this habitat create a wildlife buffer from the interstate. You're going to go in and destroy all this? What happens to all that wildlife? Where do they go? There's no thought process of how we're going to protect what's already there. The Henderson County Comp Plan lists the area as industrial next to urban services. I understand what you're saying is now it's been annexed since the last meeting, so now we have different considerations, but what I'm asking is to look at the overall picture of the entire county. I understand it's just a small chunk of Hendersonville now, but if you look at the entire county, piece by piece, we're losing our way of life. And this is a serious threat. We cannot regrow those trees. The climate has changed. That landscape will never grow again there. It will be permanently destroyed. The trees, the animals, they cannot return. The loss of the agricultural land is huge. It's a direct threat to our food sovereignty and for future generations. I would ask that we consider protecting our agricultural land for future use instead of converting it into these overdense populated living spaces, or come up with a creative solution that allows for both. Maybe a community garden or something. All right. There was a discussion about the lack of rental housing. I would actually propose that if you really want to look at the lack of rental housing, do a survey of Airbnbs. For many years I've rented here on and off, and I see that the rentals are decreasing, but Airbnbs are going up. So if you want to see where a rental property is, just look on Airbnb. And there's no regulation around this, and yet we're building and tearing down all of these landscapes. We're destroying our county. And I really want to cry because it affects me so much and I care so much. But I'm not going to cry. And then what she was saying too, with the DOT traffic study, okay, you're sitting there counting cars, but you're not counting cars for the development that you've already approved right next door. So you're not even considering that in the traffic count with the deceleration lane and all this. At least it appears that way. All right, and I'm finishing out here. All right, and then I also find it kind of ironic that, we're seeing a surge in climate crisis displacements. People from California, Florida, different places moving here because of weather crisis. If we cut down our trees, we're gonna have flooding. If we cut down our trees, we're gonna have not clean air. I lived in California for a while. Everyone's trying to move out because of what's happened. We're going to be doing that exact same thing here. It's not going to be a livable place. I'm asking for smart planning ahead of time instead of setting the precedents with these unsustainable housing complexes. Just consider maybe less density and protecting some of the natural resources that have been here since before all of us were born. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this conditional rezoning?
My name is Susan Frady, and I live at 330 Hart Road. I'm going to try to be brief because I saw Jeff outside, and I promised him I would be brief and I would be positive. So I'm going to try to do both of those. I was fortunate enough to have worked with a team on this project. From the onset, when I talked with Seth Peterson of Great Cliff Capital, he was just very adamant with me that he wanted to meet or exceed all of the city's standards. And so we went through what a lot of those were, and I have reviewed that plan, and I think they have successfully done that. I can't really say enough, I guess. I think most of you know that I work for housing assistance. And so what we're trying to do is build more workforce housing in this community. And if we have an opportunity to get workforce housing, I think we have a plan that meets the requirements. I think we should try and move forward with that. So I do recommend to you that you approve this project. It's not competition for housing assistance. It's just additional stock in our workforce housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this conditional rezoning? Is there anyone online?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone who would like to comment? Last chance here. Okay, if not, we'll close that public hearing. Okay. Council? Discussion? Motion?
I think it's a beautiful project, and I think it's a model of what we need here in this area. We have people that cannot buy a home right now or afford to buy a home and are looking for rentals constantly. We have like daily posts on our local pages asking for rentals below $1,500. And so, I mean, there's just a desperate need for more rentals here.
Other comments?
I have a question.
Okay.
Do we have to read everything in red?
I think we do.
Do not look at me. I did, right there, right there.
You do it, Jerry.
So
I'm offering to do it.
we would just
I'm gonna stick with the 1.5 caliper trees.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
So I did a quick Google search on
Okay.
what the age of a tree would be, 1.5 versus 2. I did 1 and 2 inches, and it's only 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, do want to, so for the conditions, you may want to give the developers an opportunity to talk about which of the conditions they agree to. The 2.5-inch caliper is in there. We as staff are including every recommendation
Right,
come from either your tree board or your planning board, and those are denoted accordingly. I recognize the difficulty in going through the conditions and reading them off, but we want to make sure that.
I got no problem with that.
But I do want to say that we probably ought to let Warren or Seth come up here, and perhaps we can pull the conditions back up in the PowerPoint, and they can speak to, I believe that they're, I don't want to speak for them, I believe they're in agreement with most of them, but may have some comments.
I think super simple. We're good with all the conditions except for the increase in size of caliper tree. Everything else, we're stick to the conditions.
Excellent.
You're gonna take a drink of water before you get started?
Got it, we're good.
Makes it easy, doesn't it?
May I ask Angie a question?
Sure.
On the back, where you state reasons describing why this development is good for the community, do I have to include more than one, or can I just use one?
You have to do at least one. I like to see more than one, but
Got it.
you
Not a
got to give reasons.
That's all good.
Okay.
Y'all need to pack your lunch. Madam Mayor, I move that City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of the subject property, PIN 9588-11-8740, previously portion of PIN 9588-11-9994, from Henderson County Office Institutional Zoning District to City of Hendersonville Planned Residential Development Conditional Zoning District, based on the site plan submitted by the applicant and subject to the following. Permitted uses shall include multifamily residential dwellings. Conditions that shall be satisfied prior to final site plan approval include: the developer shall construct the rear access that connects to Upward Crossing Drive to city street standards and allow it to be used as an ingress and egress for residents. To require the to preserve as many trees as possible on the site and to plant the number of trees as specified by the city's zoning ordinance. No tree credits may be utilized. The developer work with city staff to comply with the 5 outdoor lighting basics from the International Dark Sky Association. Work with NCDOT and city staff for a deceleration lane. Finding that the amended zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future land use map and that the rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. 1, multifamily is a secondary use stated in the Land Use and Development Chapter, Chapter 8, LU 9.3. 2, the development is in a priority growth area as described in the Land Use and Development Chapter, Chapter 8, Section 8.3. And 3, the development provides a type of housing that is underrepresented within the city, outlined in the graphic in Chapter 8, Section 8.2.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the conditional rezoning say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion carries, and this one has been approved this evening. Look forward to you getting started. And I'm sure a lot of people will be looking forward to you being finished. Okay. Unfinished business, proposal to compensate rural fire departments for automatic aid.
Mayor Vogt, members of City Council, at your previous meeting, at your last meeting, I made a presentation regarding compensating rural fire departments for loss of tax base within their fire districts when we annex property. So the staff, I'll just summarize again that we would propose that we would negotiate a modification to our existing automatic aid agreements with the 4 rural fire departments surrounding Hendersonville to include a provision to compensate the rural fire departments for providing automatic aid to the Hendersonville Fire Department. The compensation would be based on lost revenue due to annexation. Lost revenue would be determined by multiplying the values of the properties annexed by the city times the rural fire district tax rate. The property values would be determined at the time of annexation, and the rural department would be compensated for each annexed parcel for a 5-year period. Again, we'd have to work through the details, but that is our proposal.
Discussion. Questions? Okay.
Yeah, I've already read like 5 motions in one, that last one.
I'll do this
Somebody
one.
else has got this one.
Are you ready for a motion? Madam Mayor, I move the City Council direct staff to amend automatic aid contracts with Blue Ridge, Mountain Home, Valley Hill, and Dana Fire Departments to compensate them for the loss of annexed property for a period of 5 years.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the proposal for compensation, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Motion carried. And
Thank you guys
city
for all
manager will
doing that.
work on that.
Thank you, John. Thanks for reworking that. I think it's the right thing to do. Proud of the fact that we did it without
that a
having
lot.
to. Yeah. What?
The right thing.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, that's really good job. Like it.
Okay. New business, an ordinance to amend Chapter 10, Animals of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Hendersonville to remove Section 10-7, Animals at Special Events. Mr. Holloway.
So this one I'm bringing before you just to note that we can write short motions. I want to point out who told you. I want to point out who told you you couldn't shorten it. By the way, I'm just you requested. We get thrown under the bus for making them long. The item before you this evening is an amendment to our ordinance to amend Chapter 10, Animals. Specifically, Chapter 10 references to animals, but to remove Section 10-7, Animals at Special Events. So previous versions of the ordinance have had a couple different iterations of animals at special events. At one point, we had a blanket prohibition. We introduced the allowance for special event organizers to request that they be allowed to have animals at events, and then that was all changed to not allow. The issues that it created was that we had approved some events or had ongoing events that did include animals, some of course which didn't, presented challenges as it related to enforcement, which the chief can speak to more effectively than I can. The issue was brought back to the our relatively newly formed Animal Services Board. They reviewed that along with reviewing ordinances from other communities as it relates to animals at special events, and unanimously recommended that we just strike that section of the ordinance and deal with it in our special event policy. And so what's before you this evening is an amendment to remove that section from Chapter 10 of the ordinance.
Questions? Comments?
I will comment, having been a person that parked cars at the Apple Festival, this poor guy left his dog in the back of the pickup truck because he thought he could bring the dog. And we were giving the dog water, this was the Boy Scouts, during the Apple Festival because the dog was in the back of the truck. It was a hot day. And it is, I agree completely that it's just very difficult to try to enforce this, especially at an event like the Apple Festival, with people coming from literally all over the country with their pets.
They did discuss that they'll do some through policy, I believe, like talking about the leash length, so you don't have a 20-foot expandable leash. That it could be per different events, but this really cleans it up. It's all good. That being said, I move City Council adopt an ordinance to amend Chapter 10 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Hendersonville to remove Section 10-7, animals at special events.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the motion to amend Chapter 10, animals, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. And you can work on some policies now for special events. All right. Boards, commissions, committee appointments. We've got several here. The first one is the Downtown Advisory Board for a 7th Avenue stakeholder. There is one application. Would someone like to make an appointment this evening, or would you like to?
I would like to make an appointment.
Okay. Good.
I move that City Council appoint Shakayla Wilkes to fill an unexpired term as a stakeholder of the 7th Avenue MSD on the Downtown Advisory Board ending June 30, 2022.
Okay. Are there further nominations? If not, those in favor of Shakayla Wilkes for the unexpired term, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and we do have an appointee there. Historic Preservation, we have several terms, all with different ending dates, and we have a lot of applications, and quite a few of them are very well qualified. So I think this is going to be a difficult one. Would anyone like to make a nomination for one of these vacant seats?
Mayor Volk, if I may, before we make nominations, just want to point out that in this particular case, Cheryl Jones and Charles Reed are not new applicants. They are not eligible. They're currently on the board. You'll be making, their term does expire in December, but Cheryl is the chairman of that board, and Mr. Reed is also on that board. So,
okay, so they're really not.
So they're not in consideration for today.
Thank you.
So in other words, if we were going to reappoint them, that would be in December?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, got it, all right.
All right. Would anyone care to make to make a nomination at this point?
Madam Mayor, I nominate Crystal Cawley.
Okay. For the which term?
Great question. I have a question. So the bottom one means they're going to serve for basically from now to December, and then they would have to be reappointed again in December?
Yes.
That's correct.
That's correct.
I didn't think about that part. I'll take the 2022 one.
Split the difference.
Okay. Crystal Cawley has been nominated for an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2022. Are there further nominations?
Madam Mayor, I nominate Chris
Okay.
Reynolds. Oops, sorry. No.
For the 2022?
Oh, no, for another one, sorry.
Okay, for the 2022. That's the one we're looking at right now.
See.
Further nominations for that position? Not. Those in favor of appointing Crystal Cawley to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and Crystal has been appointed to that. Are there nominations for either of the other unexpired terms?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council appoint Chris Daniels to fill unexpired term ending December 31st, 2023.
Okay. Chris Daniels has been nominated for an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2023. Are there further nominations for that term? Not. Those in favor of Chris Daniels for appointment to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, and we have that. So we have the one that's only a couple months and then would be eligible for reappointment later. Anyone
I have
care?
another nomination unless somebody else has one.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
All right, Madam Mayor, I nominate James Welter for the 2021 term.
Okay. James Welcher has been nominated for an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2021. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of James Welcher to fill an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We have all of those taken care of. And then there is one more tonight, the tree board, in at-large seat with, again, an unexpired term ending December 31st of 2021, but again, could be reappointed at that time. Anyone care to make a nomination?
I move that City Council appoint Landon Justice to fill unexpired term on the tree board ending December 31st, 2021.
Landon Justice has been nominated. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of appointing Landon Justice to an unexpired term on the tree board ending December 31st, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and we have all of those appointments filled. As you can tell, come December, we're going to be busy with
Right, 'cause,
more appointments.
yeah, like reappointing someone
And
we just
reappointments.
appointed. Right. It's Christmas.
All right, city council comments? Anyone have anything?
Yes, ma'am. Based upon our discussion, extensive discussion tonight about tree calipers, can we ask city staff to provide us with a memo that gives us what is the economic cost between, for example, 1.5, 2, or 2.5? Just some idea other than one tree is older than another tree. Just, I'd like to ask if we could do that.
And if you're gonna do that, you ought to think also about
The age,
the
too.
types of trees
I'm-
and what's the best that provides ongoing canopy. And
I'm with you.
if you're gonna dig, go ahead and dig it and get
Yeah, I mean, I
some
don't,
good stuff.
how much, what kind of direction do you need?
I think Lou and I can work with a local arborist and do some other research and come back with some recommendations for you.
Right,
And Tom Wooten will be there with us,
Or ask the tree board to do it.
Mr.
We
Tree Board.
already have an approved tree list, so that might.
Just some information so we not just looking at this every time and have no, I don't know.
We'll just review that list to make sure it's accurate and bring it to council and kind of show you what's on the list, and then you can decide if you want to change.
Okay.
I have two more things. The second one is, and I did talk to John, and he asked me to bring this up in here, so this is not out of the blue. With regard to meetings like the planning board, I would like to see if there's a way that we could actually record the meeting. So that we can, it doesn't have to be video, but just an audio recording that we can hear the discussions ourselves and not just, I'm not faulting the summary. It just would help if we could listen to it if we wanted to. And I know that is some more tech and some more people's time, but I just think we have the technology to do it. It would be helpful in some of these if we could sit and listen to the meeting. Ones that are not, and I don't think these are automatically Zoom meetings, right?
No.
Right. So just a recording of it. What do you guys think?
I support that.
Me too.
I don't care.
You listen to it
I
late
think
at
it's a
night as
good
you're
idea.
trying to go to sleep. I got you.
ASMR.
So I guess whatever it would take to do that, cost-wise, practically doing it, I don't know what that would mean, but it seems, I know as a council member, it would help me if I could listen to what was said at the meeting. Because invariably, it'll be, well, the developer didn't do this, or the developer didn't do that, for people that attended the meeting, and this way we could hear the same thing everybody else heard. It doesn't have to be video. I feel like Allison Knock needs to say something about this.
He's coming.
I can step in for Allison. We can certainly record the meeting. We just have to get to a point where we're prioritizing time, right? And I will just prepare you that you might see additional position requests in upcoming budgets.
John discussed that with me immediately when I made that we need to hire somebody to handle that with all the meetings we have. And I guess there's also discussion of, okay, which meetings do we want to record and which ones not. I do not have the answer to that, but I certainly know I would like the planning board meeting to be recorded.
Elements of the planning board meetings even, maybe not all of it, but the special use things.
Yes.
And while we're talking about stuff, maybe we could do better, figure out a way, is, several people came up and told us they didn't know things were going on because the signs are too little. Now, I did tell them when you see a big C or an S or something of sign out there, you ought to take the time to take a picture of it and go home and look at it or something. But is it also you notify people within 400 feet of the project, and maybe looking at that and seeing, what is it?
No. Did we expand the 400 feet thing?
Yeah, I thought we were going to expand that.
Yeah, so we are sending notice to 400 feet now.
But I'm saying just 400 feet.
That's currently what we are doing, which was an expansion. So the standard rezoning was the one that confused everyone.
Right.
Because that did not have the 400 feet standard. 400 feet is in place for CZD across the board. I would note, with Alex coming on board, we've been able to start moving forward on a couple of things, and Alex is working with Allison, who's been tremendously helpful on this. One immediate thing, we're making the signs bigger, so you'll be happy
Yay.
to hear that.
Yeah.
They are getting larger.
Look at you getting
We've developed conceptual designs for all of those to make sure that they're compliant with the statutory requirements, but also we're looking for something that we can reuse. So it's larger and reusable, and hopefully the whole concept is that it's more robust. So the ones we have currently deteriorate relatively quickly, unfortunately. So a couple of efforts as it relates to the signs that we should be rolling out relatively soon. And then the other major component of what we're working on is a project page where additional information about projects that have come in and that are under review in some way or another are available on the page. And the ultimate goal is that information on the sign would point to our project page online, so within the city's webpage.
So in this case, did everybody from Strict Garden Lane get a notification?
So I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
I could find the answer out for you. I don't know what.
Well, I mean, it just seems to me
400,
that that would be an example of, like, all of those people on that street should have known what was going on via a letter.
Yeah.
So whatever would, to me, that seems reasonable under the circumstances.
I can confirm who exactly we mailed to, but that would require, I don't have that on hand.
Right. Big sign that says zoning change requested.
So we do typically post, so we wouldn't necessarily have posted that, within the development, but it was
Right.
posted on North Main.
Thing right under it says, call Jerry.
Could we not utilize our, like the system that sends me a text message and an email when there's a council conversation in your area? Could we
That's
not?
only city residents, right? Not ETJ.
I guess, yeah.
It's tied to our,
Water
so
bills.
it's tied to our water accounts. We can do that. I would just, yes, we can do that. we try to be cautious how often we use that system because people,
Yeah.
it's like this,
I agree.
it's
The
like the
school
school
closed every
system.
day.
You know.
Yeah, I'm real
people-
tired of hearing from John Bryant.
Yeah, so, so that's our point. If they're constantly getting calls from the city, they don't
Don't pay
listen.
attention.
They don't
Yeah.
pay attention. So, and especially.
Well, I don't necessarily want to call, but I like the text messages. I was just thinking we need some sort of digital way to alert people that these things are happening, like a Facebook event or something else, because I'm not checking the paper. And, I mean, the signs are going to be bigger, so that's awesome. So
So-
hopefully maybe I can get a picture of it while I'm going by, but I was just thinking.
I think we are, I think we're doing that pretty regularly, that it's on Facebook, neighborhood compatibility's on Facebook, planning board, I mean, it's.
I know, we just need to make sure Fred knows about it.
Yep.
Fred, you listening?
Fred continues to repost it.
Keep it going, Fred, nice. Thank you.
Oh, Fred, next.
One thing that I'll note, because there's a little door opening here that I would want to point out, we may be coming back to you with a discussion about the review timelines. So one of the challenges with notification for us is that, as you might imagine, the notification standards means that everything that we're doing in terms of preparing staff reports and getting the project ready has to be done, a few days before the notification goes out. If the notification involves more work, the effort to get the notification out, all of that starts backing up to where staff have very limited windows to actually review the projects and develop our staff reports. And so that, particularly with the volume of work and the complexity of projects that we've had, has been putting some, challenging deadlines on us. So we have been looking at sort of our review timelines. I know we want to be efficient and quick, and that's certainly our goal, but just kind of make note of that since we are having the conversation. That is something that staff have been discussing internally.
I like the electronic method, having something like that you can look up, because, there's personal responsibility also that goes along with seeing the zoning sign that's kind of around your neighborhood, just like there's a personal responsibility to learn who you're voting for, and if they have criminal records, that kind of thing. So that would just be like easily accessible.
We do have a goal. I will say this is kind of a secondary goal. So the project page, which lists projects that have come in just as a standalone, is one sort of the immediate goal, what we would consider slightly lower hanging fruit. We do have a goal to establish a development tracker GIS map where someone could log on to a GIS map and it would show projects under review, approved projects, and sort of people would be able to click on an address and see what the project is in that location. So I drive by a red dirt, it's kind of the red dirt alert approach. I drive by a site, there's construction going on, I can go to the GIS page and click and identify where that is and get a little bit of information about the project. A little bit further out, I'll be honest, but it is something that we have a goal for, just in terms of creating transparency around what projects are going on.
When you do those big signs, it has a letter on it, a C, different things, it kind of triggers it. Is there a pretty bold, is there a plan to put a pretty bold website to go to that people could actually see that and then go shoot straight to the website and pull up what it is?
So we've basically discussed having the two primary, so right now they're very wordy. I'm like, nobody can read this. There are statutory requirements for what has to be included on the sign, so we'll have to continue to have that on there. But we are basically focused on, at this point, a big web page address and a phone number. And we are exploring some other digital tech QR codes and things like that. Right now, we're not quite ready to put those on, but we're planning for that being a possibility, or how we would use that moving forward.
Sounds like you're on it.
We are definitely working on that. And that's one of the things Alex has been working on. And I did not have the opportunity to introduce Alex. Alex Hunt was in here earlier. She's our new Planner 1. And we're excited to have her. We're grateful for you all putting that position in place to support all the efforts that we're doing on recruitment. I posted that position in March, and we hired Alex in August. So it is not easy to bring in folks right now. She's talented. We're excited to have her, and it's going to be a great addition.
One final comment.
One more.
I'm going to be I've put on the agenda for the local government committee, whatever that meeting is,
LGCCA.
that one, to discuss workforce housing. If you have any ideas you want to share with me, just share them, email or something. That's a topic for discussion that day. That's it.
Anyone else have something you want to bring up? Okay, city manager report.
Madam Mayor, I'll be brief. Your contingency report and your cash and investment report are included in your agenda for your information. Also, we are well on the way for your hiring and recruitment bonus program. I won't prolong the meeting by going through all that, but Mr. Polly's put together a great plan in order to compensate folks that, as a recruitment tool, as well as our own employees who refer folks to us. And we've settled on a number of $4,500 in one-time bonus pay, spread out over 3 payments of $1,500. Upon the hiring, $1,500 after 6 months review, and $1,500 at the 1-year anniversary, and at a $500 one-time bonus for the employee if they recruit and the person stays with us. So that's the gist of it, but it's a good plan, and we'll implement it. We're only going to, the implementation is going to be a fiscal year at a time. It's not forever. The first, we'll implement it this year through the end of the fiscal year, see its effectiveness and how the economy is, and then we can continue to revise it or continue or rescind it based on our experience.
Right.
You have to be a new employee, Jeff, so you can't apply.
Always show up late.
I just want to know if a council member could.
Have they already voted on this?
Do we qualify?
They already voted on that?
No, we didn't vote on it. We did not.
Can we
vote
do a
on it.
motion
We didn't
to
make a-
authorize you to implement the plan?
We can do a motion. That'll be
Please.
fine.
So
Yeah.
moved. Yep. Is that good enough?
Yes.
Okay. You have a motion to implement the...
She said mine was okay. I said so moved. Oh, I thought you asked me if I was going to make the motion.
I thought you did.
Excuse me. I did. I did too. That's why I was puzzled.
I was just about to just
It's
say...
scary when the mayor looks at you and says something. So,
I wanted to make sure that was what you were doing.
yes, ma'am.
We have a motion to implement the, what are we calling it? Incentive plan?
A one-time hiring bonus,
One-time hiring
retention
bonus.
plan.
Is there any discussion? Not? Those in favor of implementing it, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. All right, now it's official. Okay.
We're so close.
All right, anything else anyone wants to bring up? If not, a motion to go into closed session.
Madam Mayor, I move City Council move into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A, 1 and 4, to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or the United States, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes, and to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries and/or other businesses in the area served by the public body, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the public body in negotiation.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Not, those in favor of entering closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and we will do that.